to use her for hate and to use her for further division in America. Here is part of that statement.
To spread. I don't want this to die. This is just the beginning of Heather's legacy. This is not the end of Heather's legacy. You need to find in your heart that small spark of accountability. What is there that I can do to make the world a better place? What injustice do I see? And what to turn away? I don't really want to get involved in that. I don't want to speak up. They'll be annoyed with me. My boss might think less of me. I don't care. You poke that finger at yourself like Heather would have done, and you make it happen. You take that extra step. You find a way to make a difference in the world. My child had a high school education. My child was no saint. She was hard to raise because everything was a negotiation. Not kidding. But you know what? She was a firm believer in whatever she believed. And let's do that. Let's find that spark of conviction. Let's find in ourselves that action. Let's spread this. Let's have the uncomfortable dialogue. It ain't easy sitting down and saying, well, why are you upset? It ain't easy sitting down and going, yeah, well, I think this way, and I don't agree with you. But I'm going to respectfully listen to what you have to say. We're not going to sit around and shake hands and go kumbaya. And I'm sorry, it's not all about forgiveness. I know that that's not a popular trend. But the truth is, we are going to have our differences. We are going to be angry with each other. But let's channel that anger not into hate, not into violence, not into fear, but let's channel that difference, that anger, into righteous action. Right now, down the road, there's a blood drive going on in Heather's name. Right now, there are people who are here willing to listen to one another and talk to one another. Last night in New England, they had a peaceful rally in Heather's name to have some difficult dialogues. If you ever want to see...
All right, we're going to come back with more of this after the break. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Wednesday, the 16th day of August, 2017. I'll be riding shotgun with Owen Schroyer. Today, I'm on the ground in Seattle, Washington. We'll also have Dr. Steve Pachinik popping in to look at the PSYOP. He was the former head of PSYOP operations at the State Department and the CIA. The PSYOP, the media is running off of these race riots they're trying to start around the country, and the teardown of historical monuments, which again is just a trigger to get people fighting with each other. We're going to be looking at that. We have an ongoing live event, vigil with Heather Hare's mother, Susan Bro, and her father. Very, very powerful, the things they're saying. We'll play some clips of that and some live clips. But the big elephant in the room, as usual, is Donald Trump. And boy, what a magnificent elephant he is. I watched that 20-minute press conference yesterday, and I watched it again this morning. We're going to play basically all of it today. But I'm going to start about 5 minutes in when he goes to questions. And then later we're going to look at what he actually tried to say. Because the media wants Trump to fail. Globalists want free market nations to fail. They want the social context and the social contract of a free market system to fail, because globalism and technocracy and all forms of authoritarianism, from crony capitalism to communism to socialism to oligarchies to you name it, do not work 1/1,000,000th as good as a free market system. We've only achieved maybe 20-30% true free market behavior at the U.S.'s peak that ended around 100 years ago, where we had 10% growth rates from the time this country founded right through until the Civil War and then on after. Now they call 3% good. The globalists pick the winners and losers. They want a nation of renters. They want control. It's in their white papers. And here's Trump saying 4 trillion stock market, 400 billion new jobs, 1.5 million new jobs, 3 million more, over 1,000 companies moved back, border more secured than ever, pulled you out of unelected TPP, pulled you out of the carbon taxes, got a good Supreme Court justice in, got them off the back of the Second Amendment, on and on and on and on and on, and building, if anything is true affirmative action, they are directing through federal grants and federal tax credits over 100 factories, large ones. And the president's put out a list of these on whitehouse.gov that are being built in predominantly black areas. And we're talking starting $20 an hour, other jobs $35, $40, $50 an hour. And then they're even setting up the skilled centers for the training for the entry level. And so you're going to talk about factories where they are in the neighborhood and where they predominantly hire people out of the neighborhood after they're given the skill set to get in there. That is empowerment. That is giving people what they really want. All the studies show to break the back of what you call classism or tribalism, you always have to have upward mobility and economy, and then that unifies the people around prosperity. The globalists don't want unity. They want divide and conquer. That's admitted. So it's an incredible time to be alive. I want to play a few minutes of Heather Hare's mother, Susan Bro, who was just speaking. She's still speaking live. We have the streams on Infowars.com. But we're live. Going to play a few minutes of what she said a few minutes ago, where she was talking about, my daughter is not a victim because she wanted to go fight, not violently, but fight for what she believed in. And so her mother is proud of her. This is really the essence of not being a victim. The globalists want to use her daughter for division, for ethnic conflict. The globalists want this. It's amazing. But you look at Trump's press conference and how he destroyed the fake news. It was so powerful. So that's coming up as well. They said, why are people leaving the manufacturing board? Because you can't get Merck and Under Armour to move their factories back. He put them on the boards, hundreds of groups, to give them good deals and to find out how they're getting screwed by China, India, Mexico, and others, to be able to have a two-way street to come back. And then they didn't want to move back. He was even letting people move back 10%. He's telling Apple, let me tell you something. You can keep your $400 billion or whatever it is you got overseas you didn't pay taxes on. You're going to move that money back here. You're going to spend it here. And let me tell you something, too. You can keep your factories in China, but you're going to build some new ones here. You're going to give us something. I mean, that's somebody literally that doesn't have a globalist, elitist, blue blood attitude of screwing you over and breaking your will as an American by breaking this economy. That's all coming up. But first, let's go to a mother who's stronger than I am. I don't know about 4 or 5 days later after this happened to my daughters or my son. I think this lady's a lot more tough than I am. And the way she said, we appreciate what President Trump said. We appreciate him talking about unity. She said his statement was not insensitive, the first statement or the second or the third. She's come out defending Trump because this lady's got a lot of class. And I want to hear, I haven't heard what the husband said yet, or the father. I've heard it was powerful too, but that's coming up. Let's play a few minutes of her.
We're going to carry Heather's spark through. So remember in your heart, if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. And I want you to pay attention, find what's wrong, don't ignore it, don't look the other way. You make a point to look at it and say to yourself, what can I do to make a difference? And that's how you're going to make my child's death worthwhile. I'd rather have my child, but by golly, if I got to give her up, we're going to make it count.
All right, that's powerful. We're going to play excerpts from this throughout the day, and her father, because there's some more we haven't gotten to yet. And here's the deal. I don't know her daughter, Heather Hare, but there are a lot of people that go out to these anti-racism rallies who really have seen the KKK. They really have seen, these unsavory groups do stuff. But they've also seen Hollywood that put out about, 150 movies the last 3 years about this to really make this painful to people that have, hearts. It's like the reports of little kids that see the modern environmental shows where the bunnies are dying, the polar bears are drowned, and they see a condo being built and they cry. And I've talked to parents where their 6-year-old cries and falls down on their knees. One of my daughter's friends when they were younger, she said, they cry. She cried and said, we're killing the bunnies. And basically, said, I want to die for the bunnies. And in Australia, you can Google this, ABC News Australia, that's the Australian broadcasting news, not our ABC, but it's national TV. It was 8 years ago, Paul Watson wrote about it. They had a video game and a cartoon for kids where you have a carbon footprint, and as you live and eat food and live, it chops the heads off of bunnies and puppies and kittens. And then in the game, though, you commit suicide and win the game, and then all the bunnies can live. And you just quietly go into a little room, you agree to commit suicide at a euthanasia center, and how sick is that? Teaching you to kill yourself so David Rockefeller has more power or Lord Rothschild has more power. They're cutting off your life force and teaching you you're evil so you get out of the way, but not before you're played off against each other. And I'm not saying that happened with Heather Hare. She was there, believing she was standing up against something evil, and there was some evil she was standing up against. That's what Donald Trump said in his press conference that's coming up at the bottom of the hour that I'm going to analyze live here with Owen Schroyer, is he said there were good people on the side of the left, and there were good people on the side of the right. There were reporters. There were people that are interested in history. There were people that just came out to see what was happening. Yeah, our reporters were there and got attacked. And the police stood down. And then you had bad groups on both sides. But it was the group on the left that came in there with clubs and things beating people against the group that had a permit. Is it okay to attack a group that has a permit and have it stand down? I don't care if you're the new Black Panther Party, basically a black KKK group. You have a right to your rally. You have a right to not be attacked. I don't care if you're an idiot KKK group. You have a right to your rally. The media is going to edit that all together and say that I love the KKK or I love this and that, because they're liars. That's why MSNBC and CNN are so hated. I get up here to show you Washington Post where a Jewish reporter got caught staging attacks on Jewish centers and how Trump was right and how we've caught other Jewish groups doing it. I'm not bashing Jews when I do that. George Soros is a Nazi. He's funding groups to go out and do this to control Jews and get them under his control for his political agenda, just like they're attacking other folks and other racial groups and other religious groups. And then the media says, oh, I'm anti-Semitic. That's a load of crap. George Soros is a listed enemy of Israel. In the WikiLeaks, he wants its overthrow. I don't. I'm reporting the truth because they said Trump was anti-Semitic when he said he thought leftists were staging attacks on Jews to say he was anti-Semitic. How did Trump in his first speech to Congress earlier this year have to, quote, address and say he's against attacks on Jewish centers? Of course he's against attacks on Jewish centers. It's like if women are getting raped, do they call me up and say, Alex, decry this woman that got raped in New York City? Well, of course I'm against rape. Well, it's the same thing. Somebody's turning over Jewish headstones and putting paint on synagogues and death threatening them every day with telephone calls. Is it your supporters, Trump? Say you're sorry. Trump says, I am sorry for that. I like Jews in Israel, but I think leftists are doing this to make it look like I'm anti-Semitic. Oh, you're saying Jews do false flags. No, I'm saying leftists do it, who happen to be Jewish, against other Jews to control them. Absolutely correct, Mr. President. You were proven correct yet again. But again, MSNBC and CNN and George Soros, the known Nazi collaborator, working to fund Palestinians to literally stab Jews to death in the streets and in their houses, and our media. Then when a Palestinian kills 3 Jews in their own house a few weeks ago, it happens every few days, they said on the news, a Palestinian was shot in an apartment. Doesn't tell you there was pools of blood and 3 dead Jews, or there's a suicide bombing. And then they, shoot somebody who was with them, and they go, 3 Israeli police shot somebody. They don't tell you that the guy had a suicide bomb. This is how crazy it is, where the media and Soros and all this are clearly anti-state of Israel, anti-right-wing state of Israel. But then meanwhile, they project on everybody else where we've got to bow down that we're against blacks and we're against women and we're against gays and well, none of it's even true. We're against globalism and ending our sovereignty and being poor and being slaves and not having religious freedom and radical, unvetted Muslims being brought in by the millions. We'll be back with Owen Schroyer, President Trump's global transmission, the Wednesday, 16th day of August 2017. We had Milo Yiannopoulos in studio a few weeks ago, but we taped an exclusive interview. That's the interview that Megyn Kelly should have done. We're actually asking a lot of hard questions. We're going to premiere that here on radio in the 3rd hour. Owen Schroyer is going to be taking your phone calls in the 2nd hour and 4th hour today, and Dr. Steve Pachenik is going to be popping in. But here's the bottom line. MSM is not real media. The very fake news of CNN and of MSNBC, and now Fox to a great extent, is globalist owned. They're the multinationals taking the country over. They're the ones exploiting our jobs. They're the ones that want a consolidated economy, not a growing economy. They're the ones that tell Africans they can't have cars and air conditioning. But it's okay because Obama's black. The greatest form of racism is classism. The greatest form of discrimination is systems that seek to make the general public poor to control them. It's called feudalism. It's called serfdom. It's been the most popular ongoing form of governance in world history. In fact, it was the only form of governance until about 2,200 years ago in Greece. And their pure democracy was a bucket of black rocks, a bucket of white rocks. And if the ruling class could vote, only men that were landed and titled, they would vote with the rocks on what they were going to do, a straight up vote. They also voted routinely to kill people. So they didn't like what you said, they'd have a vote and throw you off a cliff or make you drink hemlock. So these are cold-blooded globalists that are running things. They're psychopaths, they're sociopaths. They hate the American system. They hate the largesse of it, the freedom of the Renaissance, the spoiledness of the public. Maybe we don't deserve it. Maybe we're not smart enough for what Trump's trying to open the door to. He didn't invent this. He's trying to bring it back. But they're losers in this video coming up in the next segment of his press conference when he's giving you all the evidence of the uphill delivery of victory and real economy for the average person. And not letting rigged elites have crony capitalism and pick winners. And the media is just frothing like wild dogs on chains, trying to get at the lion that's out there and just spewing everything. And he is so balanced. He's so accurate. He's so focused. He's so confident. It's incredible. So you owe it to yourself to see what he actually said versus snippets edited together. Owen Schroyer, you're going to be riding shotgun here today. Do you concur with my analysis, or what's your breakdown?
Well, I thought that the press conference yesterday was one of the greatest press conferences I've ever heard. I think it's beyond pathetic, beyond words, beyond comprehension that we can tune into mainstream media over the course of the 18 hours or whatever it is since that press conference, and they still say Trump yet to denounce white supremacy, Trump yet to denounce, the violence at the rallies. It's just cold-blooded lies. Just straight up lies. And what I'm hoping, and it wasn't the case if you tuned into C-SPAN today, a bunch of callers fell for it, is that America can see through the mainstream media lies. You would think this is as basic as it gets.
Oh, and I totally agree. Here's the problem with C-SPAN. They now screen the calls. They ask, do you think he's a racist? Or do you not think he's a racist? Or are you not sure? They do Republican, Democrat, Independent. Or they do think Trump's bad, think Trump's good, not sure. Okay, so you've got to basically lie on the call screen to get through. But absolutely, we need to get Darren McBreen or one of the people now, not tomorrow, not next week, because no one will care then, to show him denounce it on Saturday, show him denounce it on Monday, and then show him again denounce it on Tuesday, and show him say, I denounce it, I denounce it, I denounce racism, come together, love, 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 I denounce it, come together. But in between, show them going, he won't denounce it, he won't denounce it, he never denounced it, he still hasn't denounced it, and then say, oh, do you remember this? Do you remember when he said 10 years ago, I don't like, David Duke, just randomly when somebody brought him up? Then he said it before, then he said it on the campaign. Then in one press conference, he said it like 4 times, and they kept saying 3 minutes later, you never denounced it. So we need to show people how they did that. Oh, and why won't you denounce rape? Why won't I denounce it? Well, we have denounced it, but we didn't do it. The point is, it's pure dumb level to put out some moral outrage so really stupid people in the public, if this is really a stupid person test, can sit there and feel moral outrage and call in and go, yeah, he never denounced it. How stupid do they feel, or how stupid do these people, are these the type of folks that buy Powerball lotteries? And I'm not saying if you buy the lottery for fun, you're bad. But if it's your business model, if it's your business plan to buy lottery tickets thinking you're going to win, is this the same type of useful idiots, Owen?
I assume as much. I don't understand the type of person. You know what it is, though, Alex? I think it's that people, they don't know. They've never heard Trump say anything. What they do is they walk through the gym, or they walk through the cafe, or they walk through the restaurant, and they just see the television, and on the bottom line it says Trump yet to denounce. Or they have a push notification on their cell phone, and it just says Trump racist. They don't actually know the context. They don't know the content.
That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. You just hit it. So I've been watching it in hotels and in restaurants where I am with their stuff on TV. It says Trump defends KKK. Trump refuses to, say no. Or Michael Moore says he is a Nazi. He is a racist. And they just see that, or they read it in the newspaper headline. They're not paying attention, and then they believe it.
Empire's on the run.
All right, I'm going to skip this next network break coming up because I want to play most of Trump's press conference, at least from the point where he started taking questions. And then we're going to Later, McBreen did put together a compilation of Trump 6 minutes long, disavowing David Duke, the KKK, and then disavowing it again and again and again with timestamps, showing how the media poses and says, why have you never? You know, months and months and years into him disavowing. And the new stuff where he decried Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, they don't care. They keep saying, why won't you disavow? Why won't you disavow? Lying to their viewers, lying to you. And it's just like Owen Schroyer said earlier. This is happening because the average person is just reading notifications on their phones, or they're reading Yahoo News at the restaurant or at the store, or they're reading Google. That's why they hate Drudge, because he could actually take what Trump really said, or they hate InfoWars. We can actually have real quotes, real video. There's a war against reality. These people are in a war against reality. This morning I was in a hotel restaurant, and I was looking at people on their laptops. And it was headline, the guy was on Yahoo News, Obama, concerned Trump won't decry racism. And I saw other headlines saying the same thing. And I'd get up to get some more coffee or whatever, and I'd walk by and read what they were reading just to see. And they were just all sitting there, not even reading the actual articles. Because you read the articles at the bottom, they'll actually say the truth a lot of times. It's the top. And the first few paragraphs are incredible. They're absolutely incredible the way they deceive you. But I know as an audience, you understand that. It's just that it's getting more and more intense. Now, the number one thing folks can do is understand this. We're under globalist attack. They're trying to take our sponsors. They're trying to shut us down. But because of you, we're still moving forward. And I have committed to you to bring you the very best books, films, water filtration, air filtration, non-GMO heirloom seeds, you name it. And we have the biggest special in our history, last month's special and this month's special combined, because folks love specials. And because BuzzFeed tried to shut us down, sent us to one of these California labs with the highest standards in the world, California standards, they failed to find any toxins, any metals. So they lied about us and said, oh, look, they should sell their vitamin B12 for less. But the very same site sells the best vitamin B12 out there from the studies. They say it's the best. They didn't know that we private labeled it and had it for $12 less. So it's just, we show all that on the BuzzFeed special page. Just a devastating victory against these lying failures. And that's what they are. They've chosen failure. They've chosen evil. They've chosen not to be productive. They've chosen to serve lies, serve corruption. That's fine. They've chosen their Lord and Savior. Brain Force Plus, incredible, nootropic. People love it. Super high powered. Very, very good. Survival Shield X2, the good halogen. They take all these bad halogens, put them in the food, the water. They fill the thyroid, other glands. If you don't have the good, clean iodine in there, then the bad ones go in. If there's a radiation event, you get the bad iodine, the radioactive iodine. Having the good iodine blocks that. BuzzFeed lab tested and said it's not potassium iodide, it's not sodium iodide sold everywhere. It's just iodine. So they had to spin each thing. Yes, you know how hard it is to get the actual pure deep earth type, get the DEA certifications, have it all, because it is a major precursor to a lot of things. We have that Survival Shield X2, 55% off. Secret 12, the one they demonized, 55% off. BioTrue Selenium, it is $17.76. New Super Blue mouthwash, 11% off, $17.76 with colloidal silver, and of course with iodine. Amazing, true iodine. We call it true. It's our term because it's true. That's what nascent means. Everything else calls itself that. They're not. They're potassium or other types. Then they're bound. Then you don't get the absorption. Silver Bullet, colloidal silver, 66% off, 30 parts per million. Myco ZX, the antifungal, other equation of the probiotic. Caveman, amazing. Turmeric, chaga, bee pollen, concentrated, the equivalent of, it's like chicken noodle soup squared, the amount of nutrients and how filling and how good it is for your body. Alexa Pure Breeze, the great air filtration, $149.96. That's got to end on Friday, they were telling me, because they are running out of those. Amazing ion filter, carbon filter, and two other filtration systems in one unit. Similar units are $400 to $800 still. Used to be $1,000. Vitamin Mineral Fusion, 33% off. Knockout Sleep Aid, 50% off. DNA Force, 20% off. They're all available at InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsLife.com, or 888-253-3139. And I cannot stress to you enough how vital it is to commit and to support the broadcast. Sign up for auto ship, cancel anytime, get an additional 10% off, free shipping also, free shipping on all orders, $50 or more. It has been your commitment to get great products, support the info war that is breaking the back of the globalists. These loser scumbags recognize it. They're hitting us with everything they got. They're hitting Trump, but he was so stalwart. He was so strong up there in the face of all their lies. I've never seen a lawyer. I've never seen me in press conferences, and I do a good job. I've never seen anybody slice people up. Not Johnny Cochran, not F. Lee Bailey, not Barack Obama, who's a great public speaker, not Bill Clinton. I have not even Nigel Farage, and he's about as good as it gets. He's better than me. And ladies and gentlemen, he sliced them into mincemeat and devastated them with pure truth, with honor, with balance, with love, with reconciliation, with unity. And the mother and the father of the poor lady that died, they recognize that. They're saying, don't use our daughter for this. She died standing up for what she believed in, but they don't care. They're still going to use her. Oh, and I want to start getting to this powerful press conference. We may have to go 5 minutes the next hour to get to all of it. But, I mean, it's just, I don't want to sit here and just grovel at Trump, but he deserves it. Uphill battle, enemy coming after his family. Behind the scenes, I know the preachers he prays with. He really is getting, in fact, Gary Haven was going to get into it. He never got into it. When he hosts on Thursday, I want him to spend 20 minutes on some of the top preachers in the country that are personal friends with Trump and their private prayer meetings, because they said, no, they don't care if it gets out, actually. What Trump does behind the scenes, he wants it. He believes it. He knows it. And I separately have had private conversations about God with Trump. I'm not going to get into those, but he's talked about how he was always been a Christian, but was more focused on life, his kids, his family. He just loved God. It wasn't like he was a Pharisee having to just say, oh, I'm a Christian, and being all fake. He doesn't like those people. But under the attack of the campaign and what he went through, and Christians loving him and laying hands on him and things that happen around the country, he said he never felt any energy like it. And now he's becoming a super deep Christian. And who wouldn't under the pressure he's under? And then delivering on the economy. Let me tell you something. I've always been a Christian too, but going through the stuff I've been through, it gets you real close to God. I can feel the Holy Spirit right now. And Trump can feel it. And he's addicted. That's what God gives you when you go through persecution, folks, is you get addicted to the Holy Spirit. It's a good addiction. And Trump has got the holy fire of the Holy Spirit. That's why it's called a fire, folks. You start burning once you get it. I mean, you heard Pastor Brown on. I think he's coming back on, what, today or tomorrow. Pastor Brown was on fire. We were finishing each other's sentences when we were on. He's an incredible speaker because it's the fire of God. And we were seeing that in Trump, standing against the hyenas, standing against those that want to make us poor, standing against those that are lying, standing against those that want to enslave us so they can control us and dictate our surrender, standing and razor blade sharp, slicing everything they said to pieces perfectly. I mean, I'd give him a 99.9. He barely stumbled for 1/2 second one time as they're screaming at him and hissing and yelling. I mean, he was just so manly. It was so strong. It was so honorable. It was just, it's the opposite of looking at a Michael Moore or a Nancy Pelosi that makes me feel dishonored even looking at him. Owen Schroyer.
Well, it was one of those press conferences for me that I couldn't step away from. I couldn't turn away from. I couldn't get my ear off of. I had to hear the whole thing. I actually went back and listened to it again. It was so amazing. And what he's doing with these press conferences is he's providing an opportunity for people who actually want to get involved, people who actually want to be involved with taking this country back. He's giving them the opportunity to say, hey, look, I'm not perfect. I'm not going to be agreeing with you on everything, but we're going to make America first. We're going to come together as Americans. And anybody who wants to be informed knows this. So they're going to get on board and this is going to happen. The problem is we have LARPers out there and we have people who just read the push notifications, who don't know anything. They don't know what's going on. You look at the video you covered where they take down the statue in North Carolina. And then what are these people doing? They're kicking the statue. They're spitting on the statue. They're punching the statue, flicking it off. An inanimate object, okay? They've never been slaves. They've never seen slavery in America. They don't even understand true racism, okay? But yet here they are in a park pretending like they've actually done something. They've actually defeated the slave owner. Look at me. I've defeated the slave owner. I've defeated racism. No, you're kicking a statue. It's that right there is the mindset of these people. So I don't know how we can get the numbers on our side, but I think we're going to find that they're on our side when we go to the polls.
I totally agree. And that's what God always gives us is a choice, especially a great nation like this that was founded as Christian. We're being given a choice to turn back. We're being given a choice at prosperity. We're being given a choice to really come together. We're being given a real loving president who has courage, who loves God, and who really wants to bring folks together. And we've got a bunch of frothing evil liars that funded the Arab Spring, globalism, world government, the breakdown of the family, hissing and screaming, saying we run your lives, hyping up a bunch of well-meaning young people who think they're Captain America and are getting a chance to go fight a Nazi, when in reality, George Soros finances almost all of it, and he is literally, according to MI6, the real character behind the modern-day Spectre. Okay, I mean, you cannot make this up. So let's start going to the press conference here. This is right after he breaks down 5 minutes of incredible, real economic news. And then they say, why are people leaving the manufacturing board? Well, he answers it. It's true. Merck and Under Armour have been given 7 months to just bring something back here. And he's given them all sorts of deals, opportunities, you know, to do this. And our media calls that corrupt. No, that's called free market. That's called nationalism. And then he says, why did you wait so long on the statement? Didn't do that. Again, he talks about gaslighting, how they're brainwashing people. Talks about Walmart, says you missed a critical opportunity to bring the country together. This is Walmart with its slave factories. This is just so incredibly sick to see Chelsea Clinton sending out tweets about always be radical, always choose a side, always be aggressive. Basically, don't come together when they're involved in slave factories and stealing people's money and robbing Haitians. I mean, this is just such a sick, evil group. Always remember that. Let's start rolling the press conference.
If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Why do you think these CEOs are leaving your manufacturing council?
Because they're not taking their job seriously as it pertains to this country. We want jobs, manufacturing in this country. If you look at some of those people that you're talking about, they're outside of the country. They're having a lot of their product made outside. If you look at Merck as an example, take a look where, take a look at where their product is made. It's made outside of our country. We want products made in the country. Now, I have to tell you, some of the folks that will leave, they're leaving out of embarrassment because they make their products outside. And I've been lecturing them, including the gentleman that you're referring to, about you have to bring it back to this country.
That's right.
You
Hit
can't
pause.
do it necessarily.
Hit pause. Back it up 10 seconds. And it's not like he's just saying that. I read the business pages. I read them online probably 45 minutes a day. It's one of the least areas I do study, but I study it. He's been grilling every day, calling some days 200, 300 companies, having meetings with them a couple days a week, taking them golfing, the big ones. And he's gotten Chinese and Indian and Russian and Mexican companies to move here, SoftBank, Japan, Mitsubishi, South Korea. And he just does it saying, listen, don't you want to have an economy long-term to keep buying your stuff? You can have 50-50 or 60-40 even. You got to start. Next year, I want 10% of your production in the United States. That's what he tells them. And then he's got these guys on his board. He's going, look, I'm going to get you the tax breaks, everything. What do you have to lose? Bring the factories back. Start something here. Make something here. Make the foam that goes in the shoes. Make the fabric or something. Sew it together here. You're going to do something. And he's like, why won't you do it? Because you're a globalist. So again, he's embarrassed them. They're economically hurting America. They're economically knowing that it's part of globalism to make us poor, to make us dependent as part of a strategic plan. And Trump's calling them out. So then they leave when they're the traitors on, oh, look at the race stuff. He didn't decry it enough to get little cheap points when they're the ones that actually screwed you over as part of an organized plan of economic warfare against everyone. Here it is.
Outside, and I've been lecturing them, including the gentleman that you're referring to, about you have to bring it back to this country. You can't do it necessarily in Ireland and all of these other places. You have to bring this work back to this country. That's what I want. I want manufacturing to be back into the United States so that American workers can benefit.
Some are saying, oh, he doesn't like Ireland. He singled out Irish. The Irish don't get any of the money. They use this double Irish thing where they mix the money around twice so that the money gets stuck there and stays in banks, and nobody ever gets it but the elites. So he's talking about basically offshoring money. But the media spun that, oh, he doesn't want Irish to have jobs. Let's go back to it.
Why did you wait so long to last neo-Nazi?
I didn't wait long. I didn't wait long. I didn't wait long. I wanted to make sure, unlike most politicians, that what I said was correct. Not make a quick statement. The statement I made on Saturday, the first statement, was a fine statement. But you don't make statements that direct unless you know the fact. it takes a little while to get the facts. You still don't know the facts. And it's a very, very important process to me. And it's a very important statement. So I don't want to go quickly and just make a statement for the sake of making a political statement. I want to know the facts. If you go back to my, in fact, I brought it.
Notice how it's handwritten.
As I said on, remember this, Saturday, we condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence. It has no place in America. And then I went on from there. Now, here's the thing. As to, excuse me.
And that's what they hate, is that's the president right there.
Here's the thing. When I make a statement, I like to be correct. I want the
pause
facts.
again. Back it up 10 seconds, please. That's what they hate, because that's, I've talked to folks that are around Trump all the time. He may take a few ideas, things, but he handwrites stuff out. Rarely he hands it off for them to go type it. He wrote his address to Congress. This hasn't happened in like 50, 60 years, folks. I mean, even Kennedy wasn't writing his own statements. Eisenhower was one of the last people to actually write part of his statements. This guy wrote his statements, and you can see it's written in marker. He sat there, watched it, tried to figure out what was going on, came out a few hours after it, wrote a statement. He tweeted while it was happening and said, we decry all this racism. The point is, he's the presidency. No elite wrote that. That's why the elites want control of the big American power. That's his big sin, is that he wrote it. He did it. He's real. Let's go back to him.
Make it nice and easy. Here's the thing. When I make a statement, I like to be correct. I want the facts. This event just happened. In fact, a lot of the event didn't even happen yet as we were speaking. This event just happened. Before I make a statement, I need the facts. So I don't want to rush into a statement. So making the statement when I made it was excellent. In fact, the young woman, who I hear is a fantastic young woman, and it was on NBC, her mother wrote me and said, through, I guess, Twitter, social media, the nicest things, and I very much appreciated that. I hear she was a fine, really actually an incredible young woman, but her mother on Twitter thanked me for what I said. And honestly, if the press were not fake, and if it was honest, the press would have said what I said was very nice. But unlike you and unlike the media, before I make a statement, I like to know the facts. They don't. Listen, how about a couple of infrastructure questions?
Was that terrorism?
Say it, what?
CEO of Walmart said you missed a critical opportunity to help bring the country together. Did you?
Not at all. I think the country, look, you take a look. I've created over 1 million jobs since I'm president. The country is booming. The stock market is setting records. We have the highest employment numbers we've ever had in the history of our country. We're doing record business. We have the highest levels of enthusiasm. So the head of Walmart, who I know, who's a very nice guy, was making a political statement. I mean, ask him how I do it the same way. And you know why? Because I want to make sure, when I make a statement, that the statement is correct. And there was no way of making a correct statement that...
You know what's crazy? If they're able to defeat Trump, we're defeating ourselves. I mean, look how God's giving us all this prosperity, all this incredible stuff right in our face. Everything coming. He wants to unlock all the gene editing, all the technology for life extension that the globalists, the Democrats, and Republicans don't want you under Obamacare to have access to all this advanced life extension. He wants you to have access to all of it. I mean, you know, it's his actions are incredibly real. And he's just surrounded by scum, surrounded by the swamp. And he's trying to turn the economy on for the people. It's amazing. It's just amazing. And then Walmart is this paragon of, getting a political shot in, decrying the fake headlines that he didn't disavow. When they lie and say that constantly. They're saying he didn't disavow on Monday now. They're saying he didn't disavow yesterday. When he said that there were people on both sides that came not looking for trouble, who had rights to assemble in America. What about that? Let's go back to the clip.
Nazis were there. I didn't know David Duke was there. I wanted to see the facts. And the facts, as they started coming out, were very well stated. In fact, everybody said his statement was beautiful.
You got to understand, back when Trump grew up around the same time as my dad, the KKK was so uncool. that when I talked about my grandfather standing up to the KKK, my dad went, well, Alex, it wasn't that hard. Everybody hated him. They were all toothless idiots. I mean, okay, yeah, he did, but it's like they were a joke then. The media takes these people, builds them up. Most of them are actors, and it's come out most of them are actors. It's totally staged. And the media falls into our trap when they attack me saying, oh, he says they're actors when they've been caught. So many groups, out doing this. In fact, put that Charlottesville picture up about the mother and then just the photo of the KKK guys there. And look closely at those photos. When I saw those photos, I said, is that a black guy? Because when I saw the KKK guys, it looked like they were partially African-American. And that was the weird thing when I've been to these rallies, is that it looks like minorities in the KKK outfits. I mean, I have video of this. This is really, like, they can't even get real white idiots to go do this. Like, I want to find this guy, because, the organizer formerly worked for Obama and worked for Black Lives Matter and worked for Occupy Wall Street and worked for the Democrats, but, now he's the leader of it. I mean, see how I'm saying they're always Democrats? It's just they are. I mean, look at this guy. Look at this guy. And I saw video of him. I saw him. I go, dude, that guy, that guy does not look like he's but they let him in the prisons. They let, because they're so lucky, I'm being sarcastic. They let people whose mothers are white now. So if your mother's white, you can join the KKK. So you've got these self-hating people who hate their brown side. I mean, I'm proud of my Native American heritage. And then is that guy Native American? A lot of the Native Americans, intermarry with blacks, or I don't know. It's just absolutely crazy. But I'm proud of the fact, that I'm not completely, Anglo-Saxon, whatever you call it. I'm proud of my Native American roots. But I don't know. Let's just continue here. We're going to go into the next segment with the Trump newscast, where he just destroys them. A real press conference facing down these liars. Here it is.
You would have made it sooner. That would have been good. I couldn't have made it sooner because I didn't know all of the facts. Frankly, people still don't know all of the facts. It was very important. Excuse me. It was very important to me to get the facts out, and correctly, because if I would have made a fast statement, and the first statement was made without knowing much other than what we were seeing. The second statement was made with knowledge, with great knowledge. There's still things, there's still things that people don't know. I want to make a statement with knowledge. I wanted to know the facts. Okay.
That's right. Why the mayor order now? That's something we know now.
Was this terrorism? And can you tell us how you're feeling about your chief strategist?
Well, I think the driver of the car is a disgrace to himself, his family, and this country.
He's a loser.
And that is, you can call it terrorism. You can call it murder. You can call it whatever you want. I would just call it as the fastest one to come up with a good verdict. That's what I'd call it. Because there is a question. Is it murder? Is it terrorism?
Yes.
And then you get into legal semantics. The driver of the car is a murderer. And what he did was a horrible, horrible, inexcusable
cowardly thing.
Can you tell us how you're feeling about your chief strategist, Mr. Bannon? Can you talk about that?
I would echo Maggie's question. Steve Bannon is...
I never spoke to Mr. Bannon about it.
Tell us broadly what you're. Do you still have confidence in Steve?
Well, we'll see. Hey, look. I like Mr. Bannon. He's a friend of mine.
Hit pause again. He's in New Jersey. He writes it on the back of a piece of paper, his statement, basically the same thing he said on Twitter while it was happening. He's the president. He's smart. He's informed. Bannon is doing the whole strategy of the bills and the legislation and the executive orders to turn the economy back on, because Trump agrees with it, in a big office they've got with whiteboards. That's what he does with Bannon. But Bannon doesn't tell Trump what to do. We're going to go to break here in a moment. Please don't forget, we've taken last month's special and this month's specials and combined them, calling it the BuzzFeed special, because they made me so angry at first. Then it was a big joke when they tested our products and found they were the cleanest out there, California standard, untold, almost no one can do it. Well, we're under that scrutiny, obviously, folks. We go to the very best, cleanest labs, best companies, get the best stuff private labeled. They have the top labeled B12, $35. They sell on their own operation. We sell it for $17.76, normally about $25. So normally it's still discounted $5, $10, but it's discounted almost $13 right now. Secret 12 available, InfoWarsStore.com, or call toll free, 888-253-3139. And we've got Dozens and dozens of products. Brain Force, 55% off. Take advantage of that. You owe it to yourself, and it supports the broadcast. You owe it to yourself to support the broadcast. Where could you fund something more vicious against the New World Order with truth, so savage with the love of victory? Survival Shield X2, the good halogen. Secret 12, BioTrue Selenium, Silver Bullet, Myco ZX, Caveman, Alexa Pure Pro, 25% off. Alexa Breeze, 25% off. Vitamineral Fusion, 35% off. Again, 66% off on Colloidal Silver. Free shipping as well on many of the products. Take action today and rub it in BuzzFeed's dirty, evil face. More of President Trump victorious. Straight ahead. Stay with us. I'm too confident in myself to look down on you for what color you are to feel powerful about myself. I already feel so successful and good. I want to empower you. I want you to empower me. Now, if you want to run me over and slay me, I don't care what color you are. I'm coming after you. But we got a bunch of old white men, a bunch of old globalists wanting to get rid of the family, demonizing the free market economy. Everything they're doing is to sabotage to get full control. Owen Schroyer is going to be hosting the rest of the transmission while I'm out here on a workcation on the West Coast. We've got so much coming up today, but let's continue with the powerful press conference where Trump just savaged the globalists yesterday.
Tell us broadly what do you still have confidence in,
Well,
Steve?
let's see. Hey, look. I like Mr. Bannon. He's a friend of mine. But Mr. Bannon came on very late. You know that. I went through 17 senators, governors, and I won all the primaries. Mr. Bannon came on very much later than that. And I like him. He's a good man. He is not a racist. I can tell you that. He's a good person. He actually gets a very unfair press in that regard. But we'll see what happens with Mr. Bannon. But he's a good person, and I think the press treats him, frankly, very unfairly.
Do you have confidence that Senator McCain has called on you to defend your National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, against some of these attacks?
I did it the last time.
And he called on it again, linking the
Senator McCain?
to the alt-right. And
Senator McCain, you mean the one
yes.
who voted against Obamacare?
And he said
Who
that
is Senator? You mean Senator McCain who voted against us getting good health care?
McCain said that the alt-right is behind these attacks, and he linked that same group to those who perpetrated.
Let's back it up. McCain, the guy that funded the Arab Spring and Al-Qaeda and ISIS. McCain of the Keating Five, of the Hanoi Hilton. McCain just involved in helping get Obamacare passed, who is a Democrat and is the leader of the Democratic Party. They admit he is the highest polling member of the Democratic Party who's a male. His counterpart, Pocahontas, is the highest poller. So, I mean, he's the leader of the Democratic Party. That's how the Republicans have sabotaged this country. And we're taking back the states. We're taking back the state houses. We're taking back the systems. And they know it. That's why they're panicking and lying and trying everything they can, because it's not working. And they bring up Bannon, like his first statement was written by Bannon and it was racist when it wasn't racist and it wasn't written by Bannon. And then they bring up John McCain, one of the biggest liars in the world. Here it is.
These attacks, and he linked that same group to those who perpetrated the attack in Charlottesville.
Well, I don't know. I can't tell you. I'm sure Senator McCain must know what he's talking about. But when you say the alt-right, define alt-right to me. You define it. Go ahead.
Well, I'm saying, as
define it for me. Come on, let's go. Define
Senator
it.
McCain defined them as the same group.
Okay, what about the alt-left?
I'm going to come back and do some more on this. This is too important. But do you understand how smart Trump is? We're going to play more of the clip in a minute. He says, define alt-right for me. Because Hillary creates the term nine and a half months ago, says it's everybody that opposes her, and then now that it's a new term they own, they can then attach whoever they want to it. Oh, look, Alex Jones and Donald Trump are alt-right. That's KKK. They say alt-right, then they say, oh, that's KKK. And then they say, oh, Stephen Bannon runs it, he's KKK. Just all made up. So he says, okay, you define alt-right for me. Knowing they can't, knowing it's a trick. Man, he's good. Let's play another minute of this.
Come on, let's go.
Senator McCain defined them as the same group.
Okay, what about the alt-left that came charging at him? Excuse me. What about the alt-left that came charging at the, as you say, the alt-right? Do they have any semblance of guilt?
This is Senator McCain's statement.
Let me ask you this. What about the fact they came charging with clubs in their hands, swinging clubs? Do they have any problem? I think they do. So, as far as I'm concerned...
All right, pause. We're going to go to break. I'm going to come back and play the rest of this. Go to Pachenik. He'll be with us till about 45 after. We're going to play that compilation of where he's disavowed all this over and over again. We're putting a new compilation on together with the latest things where they're saying he won't disavow. Infowars.com is the Patriot site. We now have newswars.com that loads quicker on phones and things like that. So check out newswars.com. Newswars.com has a lot of exclusive information. Please tweet it out on Twitter. We need to create a new Facebook for News Wars as well. All right, the former head of psychological operations of the State Department, the Army, and other groups is going to give us his expert take on the clear psyop. I mean, it's in the WikiLeaks to create racial division in America and stop the plan that I don't even know who developed it. I remember Pachinik like 10 years ago saying they're going to devolve power back to the Midwest, back to the South. We're going to unify everybody around free market, and we're going to break the back of the controlled left and the Republican establishment, and then the EU is going to implode, and then we're going to have the second American Renaissance. Well, I already kind of had that idea, but Dr. Steve Pachinik, you know, obviously talking to his sources inside the government, said they were going to support that move. And that's why you see the left, the globalists, the Republican establishment freaking out with $400 billion in new jobs, $4 trillion in the stock market, over 1,000 new companies, and just saying to the president, you're a racist, you're a racist, you're a racist, when he's given 3 press conferences saying he decries racism. So more of this throughout the hour. I'm going to get out of here and let Pachinik host and take some of your calls at 800-259-9231 on the events, on what you're witnessing, on Korea backing down. I tell you, Skousen's got some great sources, doesn't he? Boy, I'm telling you, going back forever, saying that if they launched those missiles at Guam, Trump was going to hit them. That's the word I got. Notice North Korea backed down. That's what Pachinik said was probably going to happen as well. So we'll talk about that as well. 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. But first, a great point he made. Okay, Thomas Jefferson called for ending slavery in the first Declaration, but they struck it. He was born with slaves. He ended up basically marrying one of them. There were slaves where they were treated horrible, slaves they treated good. Well, no one's defending the institution of slavery. It's going on in Saudi Arabia and Sudan today. The point was England was the first to get rid of it and then would attack ships for 100 years, making it go away. Part of our Revolutionary War and the 1812 War came, England was saying you can't have slavery. 2% of America was involved in slavery. It's not some guilt we all have, and other countries still have it going on. It's used to control us. And so they say, oh, get rid of Robert E. Lee. His Arlington Cemetery is where his farm was. He was on the Northern Army. He was the head of West Point. He didn't want to be in the war. But the North engaged in atrocities, so he joined it. I'm not on the North or the South. It was a tragic event engineered by British intelligence to break the country up if you study it. But why does Trump, who's a great, wonderful Yankee of the classic sense, love Andrew Jackson? He stopped the first Civil War. Trump is trying to bring America together and stop the globalist plan for civil war. We'll see if Pachinik concurs with that, because there was a planned civil war. Trump's fighting that globalist plan. We know that. We're going to play this clip, then come out with Owen Schroyer hosting with Dr. Steve Pachinik of stevepachinik.com, co-author with Tom Clancy, so much more, founder of Delta Force with General Boykin and Shoemaker. Let's go ahead, though, and go to that clip and then back to our guest host.
What you call the alt-left is the same as neo-Nazis?
Those people, all of those people, excuse me, I've condemned neo-Nazis. I've condemned many different groups, but not all of those people were neo-Nazis, believe me. Not all of those people were white supremacists by any stretch. Those people were also there because they wanted to protest the taking down of a statue, Robert E. Lee. So, excuse me, and you take a look at some of the groups and you see, and you know it if you were honest reporters, which in many cases you're not, but many of those people were there to protest the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. So, this week it's Robert E. Lee. I noticed that Stonewall Jackson's coming down. I wonder, is it George Washington next week? And is it Thomas Jefferson the week after? You know, you really do have to ask yourself, where does it stop? But they were there to protest, excuse me, you take a look the night before, they were there to protest the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. Infrastructure question, go ahead.
Should statues of Robert E. Lee stay up?
I would say that's up to a local town, community, or the federal government, depending on where it is located.
Are you against the Confederacy?
What you're calling the alt-left and white supremacists on the same moral plane.
I'm not putting anybody on a moral plane. What I'm saying is this. You had a group on one side and you had a group on the other, and they came at each other with clubs, and it was vicious, and it was horrible, and it was a horrible thing to watch. But there is another side. there was a group on this side, you can call them the left, you've just called them the left, that came violently attacking the other group. So you can say what you want, but that's the way it is.
On both sides, sir? You said there was hatred, there was violence on both sides.
Well, I do think there's blame. Yes, I think there's blame on both sides. You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either. And if you reported it accurately, you would say.
Kill the person. Heather hired
Charlottesville. They showed up in Charlottesville to protest.
Excuse me. They didn't put themselves down as you. And you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name. No, George Washington was a slave owner. Was George Washington a slave owner? So will George Washington now lose his status? Are we going to take down, excuse me, are we going to take down statues to George Washington? How about Thomas Jefferson? What do you think of Thomas Jefferson? You like him?
I do love
Okay, good. Are we going to take down the statue? Because he was a major slave owner. Now we're going to take down his statue. So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history, you're changing culture, and you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly. Now, in the other group also, you had some fine people, but you also had troublemakers, and you see them come with the black outfits and with the helmets and with the baseball bats. You had a lot of bad people in the other group too.
Treated unfairly, sir. I'm sorry, I just didn't understand what you were saying. You were saying the press has treated white nationalists unfairly? No, I just didn't understand what you were saying.
No. There were people in that rally, and I looked the night before. If you look, there were people protesting very quietly the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. I'm sure in that group there were some bad ones. The following day it looked like they had some rough, bad people, neo-Nazis, white nationalists, whatever you want to call them. But you had a lot of people in that group that were there to innocently protest and very legally protest because, you know, I don't know if you know, they had a permit. The other group didn't have a permit. So I only tell you this, there are two sides to a story. I thought what took place was a horrible moment for our country, a horrible moment. But there are two sides to the country. Does anybody have a final?
It's amazing because the media never gave Antifa proper credit for the violence in Charlottesville, the stopping of free speech in Charlottesville. They never gave Antifa proper credit when they disrupted Trump rallies, when they were staging terror attacks to disrupt J20. The media never gave the Democrats proper credit when they had Bob Kramer, Scott Fovel, and Aaron Black on the streets instigating violence. They never gave them any credit then. But now all of a sudden you'll see the media gives Antifa credit as fighting racism. And there's the battle that they have staged for us. Steve Pachenik joins us today. And you've got the chessboard behind you today. I think that is very symbolic of where we stand in the fight for America right now, how they're trying to move racism around to put us in checkmate.
Let me put it this way. I'm not surprised this occurred. This is something we talked about a year ago or so. I said there would be groups that would be pitted against us. Now, who's us and who's they? Number one, Richard Spencer grew up in Boston. His father is an ophthalmologist, went to all these private schools and colleges, never worked a day in his life. And he becomes, quote, the head of the Nazi party, or whatever you want to call it, the alternative right. This is a man who contrived the history that he belongs to Montana. I've lived in Montana. We don't particularly like him in Montana. His mother spoiled him. His father spoiled him. And then he creates, quote, a group. He's never worked a day in his life. He has no idea of what a daily worker is about. And he tried to come here, University of Florida in Gainesville. I stopped them, and a bunch of other people stopped them. So we have these intellectuals on the left, so to speak, and on the right. On the left, I have Signer, a Jewish kid, went to University of Virginia. Both of them went to the University of Virginia, both intellectuals. None of them have ever been in anything other than what they want, which is self-aggrandizement, increased narcissism, and make themselves prominent. Spencer didn't do anything in his life that's worthy of anything. He's a spoiled little brat. And Signer's a spoiled little brat who wants to go to politics and prose on Connecticut Avenue and teach nonfiction. So you have these two spoiled little brats coming together with the most ridiculous outfits I've ever seen, where you have fully trained and fully equipped soldiers coming down with lanterns or flares as if this was a Nazi rally. First of all, neither one understands what the Nazi rally was about. Secondly, most of them don't understand that Hitler really had about 100,000 Jews in his army. Now, I didn't make this up. Hitler's two major field commanders on the Luftwaffe, the Blitzkrieg, were full Jews out of 5. Hitler's right-hand man, Heydrich, who was in charge of the extermination of Jews, was a Jew from Austria. So history is missing in all of this. On the left, they forgot that they gave birth to eugenics in Germany. It was the left, particularly Stanford University, University of the Rockefeller University, and Harvard, who gave the grants that eventually went to Mengele to do the eugenics and eugenics experiments. Also, it was Margaret Sanger who inspired everybody to get rid of any child that was not adaptive.
We'll be right back with more on The Alex Jones Show. Welcome back to The Alex Jones Show. Owen Schroyer, Dr. Steve Pieczenik with you in this segment. We will be, for the remainder of this hour, talking about the events in Charlottesville and the truth about them. And while we're talking about it, you might want to get to InfoWarsStore.com because we have the BuzzFeed mega special going on right now, but this is going to be ending soon because we're selling out of these products. So we can't have the special if we don't have any products to sell you. So make sure you get to InfoWarsStore.com as soon as you can to take advantage of the BuzzFeed mega specials. That includes Brain Force Plus, 55% off. Survival Shield X2, 55% off. Secret 12, 55% off. All of those highly rated, great must-have products under $20 right now. And with coupon code GOBLIN, InfoWars select storable food up to 50% off with the coupon code GOBLIN. Some other products available: BioTrue Selenium, 29% off. Myco ZX, 46% off. Silver Bullet, 66% off. Caveman, 30% off right now. DNA Force, now this is one of our flagship products that sells out a lot because it's so hard to get some of the elements that are in there. DNA Force, and that's 20% off right now. So take advantage of DNA Force, a 20% savings on one of our flagship breakthrough products, DNA Force, that is selling out. That's one that usually does sell out. So make sure you get to InfoWarsStore.com and take advantage of the BuzzFeed Mega Special, which will be ending soon because we're selling out of all these products. So you are supporting us. You're taking advantage of the Mega Special. But if you haven't yet, get to InfoWarsStore.com as soon as possible. Otherwise, we're going to be out of products, and the BuzzFeed Mega Special will be ending. InfoWarsStore.com, BuzzFeed Mega Special, limited time, free shipping as well. Take advantage of all of those great offers and fund independent media that gets people like Dr. Steve Pieczenik on to break down the, I would say, collusion. I would say behind-the-door collusion between the mayor of Charlottesville and Richard Spencer. Dr. Pieczenik, where you left off.
I would agree with you. There is a clear collusion. Both of the men were trained in the same place as the University of Virginia. They're both highly educated. They both owe their allegiance to their specific parties. In the case of Spencer, he just made up some nonsensical party called the Nazis or the alternative right or alternative media. He didn't create the expression alternative media. Neither did Hillary. It was really created here on the Alex Jones Show when we did it about 12, 14 years ago, where we were the new right or the new Republicans because we broke away on 9/11. That's what nobody really understood. This is a still carryover in terms of the Republican Party, or we who were disillusioned with the Bushes and others, that we wanted to have our own specific party, and Alex was the forefront of it. In terms of the left, I mean, they have been pathetic. It's still part of the Podesta group. It's still part of the, you know, the fascism of the left. When you create a tight group and they're always working to create agitation, propaganda, that's the beginning of fascism on both sides. And probably the closest analogy historically to this would be the Weimar Republic in the 1920s, when you had the fascist left and the so-called fascist right coming together, and in between you had this painter, or a theoretical painter who didn't get into art school, named Hitler, who came to power. Now, this is highly contrived. Whoever's involved has to be involved with some of the elements of the FBI and some of the elements of the CIA. Why do I say that? Richard Spencer lives in Arlington, Virginia. He was married to a former Russian, or Russian-American. The Russian-American, it turns out, studied U.S. foreign policy, international relations, and guess what? The Soviet Union. By definition, she was and still is probably the CIA. In return, you have Podesta Group, you've got Singer, or Signer, as he calls himself. He was involved in a lot of education as well, University of Virginia, as was Spencer. So both come out of the same background, intellectual, spoiled, elitist. None of them have ever really worked. None of them created a job. And both decided to get into the business of agitation propaganda. In turn, you have the FBI, who's completely penetrated the KKK. There's no notion there is any KKK. As usual, Alex is correct. And years ago, I remember Maurice Dees of the Southern Poverty Law Center, whom I helped out about 20, 30 years ago, and gave him some operatives and some money to tell him to infiltrate it, and also we told the FBI to get rid of the KKK. So the KKK doesn't exist, and as Alex pointed out, the absurdity of having a black or brown individual in the KKK makes it even more absurd. The fact that you have men dressed up in full combat gear walking with flames is also absurd. So this was all highly contrived by whatever, the deep state, the FBI, the agency, in order to create strategic tension. Now, Trump handled this very well. Where the problem lies for Trump is very simply that he's answering all the questions right on the mark, but he's getting trapped in this strategic...
That's Dr. Steve Pieczenik. We'll be right back with more from him, more of the breakdown on Charlottesville, and your phone calls. This program, along with Dr. Steve Pieczenik, has been telling you for years that the deep state, the globalists, and the left are going to try to set up and stage events and blame patriots in order to start a civil war and destroy this country. Dr. Steve Pieczenik has broken this down in the previous segments. He's wrote about it on his website, stevepieczenik.com. Charlottesville stage confrontation. He broke down the collusion with Michael Signer and Richard Spencer, a professional LARPer by my estimation. But I want to hear your take on a couple other angles, Dr. Pieczenik. 3 angles I want to hear your take on. 1, what happened to the police helicopter, and how come nobody is asking that question? No coverage on that. 2, what do you think about the people that attacked the car that ended up driving over people and killing one woman? And what do you think about the car driver able to speed out of there in a jiffy like a professional driver and get out of the scene, and then police are able to apprehend him later? Let's start with the police helicopter. What are your thoughts on that?
I really don't know. What I do know is that beforehand, I was shocked that there was no police protection for anybody, either on the right or the left. This was a trap. There was no question this was a setup. This should have been seen very quickly by whoever the marchers were, particularly on the alternative right or Spencer. They didn't pick this up, and they should have picked it up, because there was no police protection as they came in, and then they were shuttled into a barricade. The second issue about the car, or, the helicopter, I really do not know what happened. I'm sorry. I mean, I know UVA police. Some of them are very good. Some of them are, they do their job. Virginia tends to have a very strict moral code and a very strict system of operation for their state troopers and all of their policemen. So they're well trained. As for the Charlottesville police, I have no idea why they were not there. Most probably the mayor told them not to be there. And if I know Terry McAuliffe, who's been the political slime bag since he's been with the Clintons for over 20 years, there's no question in my mind that he was part of this setup in order to create the confrontation that he needed in order to create a distraction away from either Hillary Clinton, the investigations going on, the Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So this had a lot of overtones to distraction, denial, and distortion. It's an old intelligence technique, but it's not working that well. And in terms of the driver, they said he was schizophrenic. They said he was on medication. I'm a little bit surprised that he was brought into the Army, given the fact he was schizophrenic. I'm not surprised the Army threw him out within 4 months. And then he immediately went to whatever organization that he said he was pro-Nazi. Most people have no idea what the Nazis really were, or who they were, and how they fought. It just sounds great, and they have no idea what the underlying basis was for National Socialism. If he's crazy, then I think he should be evaluated, and then he should be either placed in a psychiatric hospital, which I would not recommend, since I would say he was quite sane according to the McNaughton ruling. In other words, he knew exactly what he was doing, and he should be prosecuted accordingly and tried for murder. And whether you want to call it terrorism or intentional murder, there's no question in my mind he's a murderer. As a result, the prosecution on a federal level has to be consistent with intentional murder and no mitigating circumstance. I do not say he was a schizophrenic at that point.
I completely agree, and it's pretty obvious that anybody in their right mind would completely condemn a psychopath mauling people down in a car. But I'm just curious, how come there's been no talk in the media or anyone about the people that were beating his car, the people that were hitting his car with bats? I mean, this is the kind of thing that if we don't stop that, you could have another similar incident.
Well, what you've got here, with all due respect, when we start getting into the weeds of the garden, what you're finding out is this is just the small elements of agitation propaganda. It doesn't matter. Once the confrontation occurs and once there's a decision to have these two elements collude together, as you would say, anything is possible after that, and basically the free-for-all becomes part of the agitation propaganda. So you didn't have police intervening at the right time. You didn't have any sense of civil order. The governor really was totally inept, as one would expect of Terry McAuliffe, and the Charlottesville mayor is totally inept. Again, I mean, he's very much of a kind of elitist, pansy type, exactly like Richard Spencer. These are not people who are serious. Will it happen again? Maybe, but I'll give you one idea that here in the University of Florida in Gainesville, we just turned down Spencer's request to say that he wants to talk about free speech. This is not about free speech. Contrary to what anybody thought, this is about agitation propaganda. So the First Amendment does not apply either to the alternative left or the alternative right. When you're intending to come into an agitation propaganda and confrontation, there's no lawyer in the world that could rationalize that this is free speech. It's just not.
Well, and you know what's going to happen? Element. The ACLU is going to come in and probably say that, how dare you not let Richard Spencer have his speech, because that's what they did over the weekend in Charlottesville.
That's fine. I've funded the ACLU. I don't think they're necessarily the most sophisticated organization. I don't think they really understand anything in the intelligence world in terms of agitation propaganda. They don't understand denial, distraction. They work on a judicial system which may not be relevant to today's times. And I respect what they've done in the past, but I don't necessarily agree that premeditated confrontation is the right to speech, and that's not a First Amendment right.
And this is how they're trying to stage the Civil War, at least in my opinion, to clash these two groups against one another. We're now joined also by Alex Jones, so Dr. Steve Pachenik on the line. Alex Jones with us now. I'm Owen Schroyer, kind of playing traffic cop here. Alex, welcome back to the program.
You bet. I'm on a working vacation, but actually out here working on several things while I'm in Seattle with some family, but I was going to go on a hike here in a few minutes. That's why I'm in my regular T-shirt. But I was getting in the car to drive to the mountain, and I'm listening to you guys on the iPhone app. And what Dr. Pachenik was saying was so important. I pulled back up, went back up in the hotel, because I happen to know the history of the WTO because I had a reporter out here at the time. I bought a bunch of the raw footage from the 1999 demonstration against the WTO. And that was back when the left was halfway against globalism and unelected groups taking over. But that so concerned the globalists, they spent all this money coming in to take it over and then to start branding it in 2000 as racist. So they began to fund the white supremacist groups and others that have been well known. And even Texas Monthly's written cover page articles about the FBI creating fake Klan groups. As Dr. Pachenik was saying, intelligence agencies setting them up, Oklahoma City using German intelligence, Southern Poverty Law Center. It goes on and on. But there I am yesterday in Seattle, down on the waterfront at the old market that's there. And they have a shop there that was selling old posters and one-of-a-kind photos and old magazines. So I was in there buying my mom some old, Time Life book type stuff. In fact, maybe Zimmerman bring me a few of those over here. And I saw this because I remember getting sent a copy of this by a listener, but a smaller handbill size back in 1999. But I was actually able to buy the one-of-a-kind they had. They said, yeah, nobody ever even wanted it. Stop the WTO. And here it is. And it says right there, agitprop. And it talks about what they were doing. Peaceful people out here peacefully demonstrating against the World Trade Organization transferring our sovereignty. And they can't have that. So then they posed 50 people who were government house protected, trained in Oregon by big foundations to come in, be violent, attack police, the police stand down, then they come in the next day, attack the peaceful crowds because the public had already seen that. And that's the standard deal. And you heard what he was exposing with Spencer and the guy's wife and the whole background. It's all complete cutouts. They don't even try to hide any of this stuff. And this is Steve Pachenik, who ran the psychological operations, the Camp David Accords back when he was younger and all those other things. And this is a real player telling folks this is going on. So I want him to briefly speak about the players now he thinks that are involved and what he thinks they're going to hit us with next, because they won't let Trump bring us together around the economy or anything. They just keep hammering. A lot of folks aren't buying it, so they're using fake polls again to make it sound like he's losing steam. But I had to come back because people don't know what agitprop and all this is. They don't understand that this is really going on. It's what they train universities for. Even the low-level people involved know they're involved. They're almost all doctorate students recruited in by foundations as front groups. And the public needs to understand that when I say they caught leftist Jewish individuals attacking synagogues this year to blame Trump, they got caught. It was in the Washington Post, but no one gives it coverage. Or when they catch leftist groups doing it, they just try to spin it, hoping we're all ignorant, but less and less it's working. So I'm going to get off here and let Dr. Pachenik finish, then let you go to calls ahead of our exclusive interview that we haven't aired yet of Milo. This is the taped interview. But I wanted to just come back because he mentioned agitprop. I want folks to know this is what you're actually hearing. This is the reality of what they're doing. Please continue.
Alex, as usual, you're right on the button, and so is Owen. What agitation propaganda is, it's an old technique that we've used for centuries. Actually, the Germans used it, the Russians use it. Everybody uses it in order to create a distraction. I mean, you have Trotsky, you have Lenin. Lenin's right-hand man was Trotsky. What was he famous for? He was famous for coming in, creating agitation, and then making sure that the two elements, the White Russians, the Soviets, would attack each other, and therefore they could neutralize both of them and eventually take over as the Communist Party. Trotsky's mistake was
fish in the James Bond From Russia with Love. It's like the fish, where they get the two Siamese fighting fish to almost kill each other, then the one's almost dead and the new one can come in and take him out.
Again, Alex hit it on the head. One of the reasons I always love to come on the show is because Alex knows a lot, and he doesn't reveal it, but it's true. But like the Russians and like Trotsky, what happened to Trotsky was he insulted Stalin, and then Stalin had a retribution, which was an axe in Trotsky's head. Now, this is exactly what will happen to Spencer, this will happen to Signer, and this will happen to the individuals who are involved. The reason for that is very simple. Those of us who know the deep state, who know everything about agitprop, we know exactly how it's created, where it comes from, who's funding it. We'll make sure that these leaders, and this is a warning to them, and I have rarely missed my warnings, that they are in trouble, they are in danger now of being killed by their very own people who set them up. whether it's the FBI, the CIA, or whatever foundations you want to talk about, they will not be able to continue. Now, why do I say this? Because when Spencer went up to Montana, and Montana he went to was a very elegant, rich area, Whitefish, where you go sailing, you go fishing. He didn't go into Montana to work. He didn't work a day in the lumber camps. He never worked a day creating a business. I had 4 businesses in Montana. This is a spoiled child, literally a child whose mother got into fights with people in Montana. And I called up my friends, the conservative Republicans in Montana, and they say, this is a brat. And so he was picked up because he is a brat. He's easily controlled. He has nothing to do with Semitism or anti-Semitism. He's just a jerk who has nothing to do, and he's lazy. The same thing with Signer. Signer's a Jewish kid who's a schlep. He never worked a day in his life. He was part of the transition group under Obama. So what happens is the deep state, some of us come in, we pick each one of these guys, we tell them they're important, we fund them money, and then we say, go at each other. Now, the big difference here is what Alex said and what Trump said. Number one, let me be clear about our Civil War. Our Civil War was never, but never about slavery. It was always about money and the increased domination of the Industrial Revolution in the North. And we wanted the Missouri River, we wanted the Mississippi, we wanted New Orleans. Similarly, this new war will not be a civil war because Abraham Lincoln was not that stupid, but he was not that healthy, nor did he care about blacks. Let me be very clear. If you look at the statements that Abraham Lincoln made, he said, blacks are inferior. I don't want them in the America. I want them deposed and sent over to Liberia. In fact, Lincoln mandated that Maryland, Delaware, Missouri must be slave states in order to make sure the political elite could control the South and then eventually could do what he wanted. Lincoln had Marfan syndrome. He was a bipolar individual. He was totally nasty depressed. So if you want to go to any statue where a man hated blacks, literally, you look at his statements that he made about blacks, they were inferior, they should never come to America, we'll send them back to Liberia, then take away the Abraham Lincoln Monument. I don't have a problem with that. I've always resented that I had to have the propaganda from the North that Lincoln was a great president. He was one of our worst presidents. Just like John F. Kennedy, he was mentally ill. He had no idea what he wanted, except he was repressive. He was a fascist. He arrested all of the judges in Maryland, all of the journalists, and then created auto-genocide, where 950,000 boys were killing each other. Now, you tell me that's a great president, and I want to hear the press retaliate with any sense of history. So what do we have in academia? We have this notion that Lincoln was one of our greatest presidents. Absolute nonsense. Doris Goodwin, who was the writer about Lincoln, was the same woman who seduced LBJ on his biography. So you have academia involved in the polarization of a country. You have professors who are tenured who have no idea what the history is about. You have PhD students who continue just propagating nonsense. And there's no history or a basis of facts. We don't talk about the history of America. We don't talk about the fact that Lincoln was very close to kind of a Pol Pot who made sure that we destroyed the entire South in order to get railroads, in order to get Mississippi, in order to get New Orleans. He didn't give a damn about the blacks. We had white slavery coming in. Ask every Irish family who came in during the 1840s, 50s, and 60s. The first thing the Irish came in for, they were sent into the war. And if they couldn't buy their way out, they were the real slaves in the North. Grant had a slave. Lee had a slave. I mean, this is absurd. So the distortion of history, as articulated by academia, was absurd. And that was part of the propaganda that I had to learn in the North and disavow when I came to the South. The South was far more integrated than anybody ever realized. I'm still living here in the rural South, and I have mixed couples at a far greater rate than I see in the North. Robert E. Lee was not only the number one student at West Point, he was, as you said, Alex, the superintendent of West Point. The reason he went into Northern Virginia is because his loyalty was the patrician family in Virginia, not to the South. He eventually agreed to be the head commander of all the South only years after he was in the war. He was a great tactician, but not a great strategist. And in turn, we have Grant, who's portrayed as some kind of alcoholic, who was a brilliant strategist, was an excellent command and control officer, and did exactly what he had to do to fight the war. And he did it, and eventually became president of the United States because Lincoln was afraid that Grant would become the president and try to subordinate him. So the history of all of these dynamics is never articulated because our schools don't teach it, our professors don't want to hear it. And basically, the New York Times has no idea what they're talking about. Neither does the Washington Post. The first people I hear are going to have any ideas, I'll always go to Alex. Now,
all right, folks, we'll be right back with more of the Alex Jones Show.
Siamese fighting fish, fascinating creatures. Brave, but on the whole stupid. Yes, they're stupid. Except for the occasional one such as we have here, who lets the other two fight. While he waits. Waits until the survivor is so exhausted that he cannot defend himself. And then, like Spectre, he strikes.
I find the parallel amusing.
Clip from the James Bond movie where they set up the fish to eat one another, and then the third fish comes in and takes it all over. And the analogy is that that's essentially the Antifa, the alt-right, alt-left, whatever names you want to put on these people, all clashing together only for the deep state to be victorious in ultimately what is a coup against Trump. And for the final segment here with Dr. Prochanek. Dr. Prochanek, I had one question for you. I've been following your coverage of all of this, and I want to phrase this to the best that I can. You seem to be pretty unfazed by all of this. You seem to think that all of this is pretty menial and that this isn't really the big story. There's something else going on. Is my analysis of your coverage of this accurate?
Yes, you've been, as usually, very sharp, Owen. The reason I'm not fazed by any of this, number one, we don't have a civil war. Number two, Trump understands what's happening. Number three, if you see the man next to him, that's a famous executive producer who really understands what's going on, and really where the distraction is occurring and why this is occurring is that the Democrats have been trying to raise money for Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the Aoun brothers, the Pakistanis, Awan brothers, who are Pakistani thieves and criminals. They should have been arrested. It's a major national security threat, and the money isn't coming into Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She should be indicted, convicted, and sentenced as an enemy of the state. Similarly, the problem occurs with Obama. He has again tried to open up a nonprofit organization. It won't work. Obama was a failure. He was a product of the CIA. His mother was an agent, his grandmother's grandfather. So again, the agency fails repeatedly, and this is all before Pompeo, who came in, and also the fact that we put military officers into the White House and in other executive positions. We will not have a civil war. The reason for it, as I said before, the Civil War was started for economic reasons. Trump is in no way similar to Abraham Lincoln, who was really Marfan syndrome with major mental problems and severe narcissism. What happened in the Civil War was economic change from
Dr. Steve Pieczenik, drstevepieczenik.com. We'll be right back with more of the Alex Jones Show. Well, the whole weekend was started by LARPers like Richard Spencer, Michael Singer. That has been broken down by Dr. Steve Pieczenik, drstevepieczenik.com. One more segment with us before we go to a brand new airing interview here on the Alex Jones Show with Alex Jones and Milo Yiannopoulos. Never aired before here on the Alex Jones Show. And I'm just wondering when the left that are coming after all of these quote-unquote racist monuments are going to call for the removal of Margaret Sanger statues and Robert Byrd statues. Haven't seen that yet. Or asked Hillary Clinton to disavow Robert Byrd. But Dr. Steve Pieczenik, getting back to what you were saying before the break, reason with me right now and reason with our audience right now why we have not seen any public prosecution of Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Because the system is afraid to get into a political adversary situation. Number two, Debbie Wasserman Schultz doesn't have enough money to defend herself. Number three, there was a transition with the FBI, but eventually the FBI will come down. It will be a federal prosecution on her for treason, for intentionally misleading our FBI agents, for intentionally lying, and it will come about. Trump understands what's happening. The people around Debbie Wasserman Schultz knows that she lied before, as we know, with the Bernie Sanders campaign. But it takes time. And, you know, since we've had a transition with the FBI and Comey, there will be people in place to prosecute her and eventually to prosecute others who are involved with her. And the Pakistani brothers will be brought back from Pakistan and indicted and convicted.
How much control does Wray have over the FBI right now?
Almost none, because the FBI, look, it was created by a man who was a drag queen. I mean, think about it. Which organization was created by an American drag queen like J. Edgar Hoover? And then they try to sustain a credibility throughout the next 40, 50 years. I've worked with the FBI. I mean, there's some good guys, some bad guys, but for overall, they're dysfunctional. They've always been dysfunctional. It started with a Hanafi Muslim. They couldn't do anything, and then they make protestations. But basically, I eliminate them. They're useless in many ways, like the CIA. The military is far more effective in DIA and other branches of our intelligence.
You've been calling out the gaslighting in the media to try to invoke President Trump to do something drastic or rash. Do you think his response with the press conference yesterday was the track in the right direction?
Yes, I think Trump, as Alex said, he's very smart, he's very bright, he knows exactly how to handle this. What he's doing, basically, is he's creating a distraction away from what we've been doing in Raqqa and Mosul, and basically we've had success on the military ground, we've had success in North Korea, as I said we would, and we will have success on the infrastructure. Once the infrastructure projects come in, and the Goldman Sachs boys are going to be in charge of this, and Blackstone, the head of it, Schwartzman, will be in charge, you're going to see the Democratic Party basically implode, and they know that. This is the end of their existence. Once the tax cuts come in and the infrastructure projects come in, Schwartzman has basically sealed their death sentence, and so you will not see the alternative left being all that functional. This is not a civil war. This is just a distraction from the main agenda.
So what do you think desperate Democrats will do here, final 60 seconds of the segment, as they prepare for their ultimate death?
Well, they're going to just scream. What happens when you're a dying animal is you just squeal, and Maxine Waters, who's as dumb as they come, you know, will just make more stupid statements and go to a $4 million chateau, but basically they're not relevant. They know it. It's the end of their lifestyle, and they will make all kinds of ridiculous things. Nobody cares.
That's Dr. Steve Pieczenik, as usual, analysis spot on. Thank you for joining us today, Doctor.
Thank you, Owen, and thank everyone else.
There goes Dr. Steve Pieczenik, folks. He's always accurate, spot on with his analysis, and pointing us in the right direction of where to look with the big news. When we come back, we will have the Milo Yiannopoulos interview with Alex Jones. Has not been aired yet on the Alex Jones Show, so we will air that in the next segment. Don't go anywhere.
I say provocative and outrageous things in order to demonstrate that the American media isn't really interested in the truth.
I'm going with my instincts. I'm going with my guts. I'm going with who I am, my essence, with truth.
Now, you and I have something in common, which is that we blend social commentary, although we wouldn't perhaps put it like that, it's a bit too highfalutin for us, but we do blend social commentary and newsmaking with entertainment.
Yes.
But how would you describe what you do?
Well, I believe in my overall libertarian ideas, but then I'll play devil's advocate, I'll make jokes, and then the media, the corporate media kind of snips it out and says, oh, when you're being silly, you're serious, saying the left are the only group that are allowed to be comical.
Yeah, because I've found that when I'm being silly, they'll pretend that I was trying to be serious, and when I'm being serious, they'll say, you can't possibly have believed that. You must get people asking you that too, and I'm saying, well, if you want to know what I believe, read the book. You know, if you want to know what Alex believes, watch it. Well,
that's exactly what they do. They always edit things, they take them out of context, they never do real long-form interviews. Usually, whether it's for print or a TV show, if it's establishment, mainstream media, they'll interview you for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours just to pretend they talk to you. Then they'll edit pieces that weren't even...
They might not even use any of the footage. And in some cases, if it's too reasonable or it's too interesting, they just won't use it at all.
It's like Sean Hannity did an hour-long interview with retired Ted Koppel. They brought back out of retirement this year, and they edited it down to 70 seconds. And those 70 seconds were edited together.
And you can get people to say anything in an hour-long interview and edit it down together. I mean, we're going to be running this exactly as the conversation we have it, so people can actually see the conversation in context and can understand what we both mean.
Isn't that racist, though?
What?
If you don't edit something, and I'm being sarcastic.
Fair, unbiased, contextual journalism is probably racist.
Also known as hate.
Yeah, hate speech. Hate speech.
Homophobic.
Allowing the subject to answer a question in full for themselves, in their own words, and not editing it down must be some kind of...
Well, the real form of no platforming is to just edit something to where it's non-recognizable, and you've killed the person's platform. You're pretending like you have a platform, but there's not a platform. Kind of like YouTube now says, we put your video into the phantom zone where no one can see it, no one can like it, no one can share it, but it still exists, just in cyberspace where no one can see it.
Now, there seems to be a political dimension to this, because it doesn't happen uniformly across the spectrum. It seems to be conservatives and libertarians who get it particularly. Now, if you look to the left, you've got Jon Stewart, John Oliver, and you've got Bill Maher even, who's perhaps more substantial than the other two. Right. And these people are entertainers as well as social commentators, as well as newsbreakers in some cases. But they're allowed license, they're allowed space.
They can talk about Trump being a cockholster. They can use the N-word, which I wouldn't use, period. And that's okay, because they're the anointed priest class.
Because they have the right politics.
Yes.
And that's basically, do you think that it is the politics that makes the difference?
Absolutely. It's a total one-sided deal where they're the high priest of knowledge. They can do anything they want. Just everybody else has to be blacklisted because, quite frankly, they don't want the competition. They can't compete with the big Americana, Western, Renaissance, Magna Carta, classical, British, European freedom model.
Like Western values.
Western values. They can't compete, so they have to pose like they're that, but then restrict everybody else.
Right. I think that's probably true. Now, I experienced some of the consequences of that hypocrisy myself in February, when comments I made. I was making jokes about something that happened to me when I was younger, speaking loosely, meaning cautiously. Under normal circumstances, if you had been, let's say, the victim of child abuse and you had spoken about it loosely and made jokes about it, it would be the ultimate get-out card if you're on the left. It would enable you to say, do, and be anything you wanted. But because I had the wrong politics, people went for the jugular, from the left and the right. And I felt like trying to explain to people the extraordinary lengths the media will go to take down people it considers dangerous, people it considers alternate power centers, if you like, is very difficult, because unless you're in the middle of it, like perhaps we are, in our own different ways, on the receiving end of this mendacity, it can be difficult to try to explain to people just how dishonest they are. But let's do it one way, which is, what kind of social consequences have you experienced for making the career choices you have? Because I sometimes feel like I've given up any hope of a social life. My friends are all on my payroll. Like, how is your life as a result of the kind of career you have, having what for the politically correct establishment would be very unpopular opinions?
Well, the rewards have been 100 times the negatives, but my ex-wife and her lawyers used basically edited down versions of what I'd said and what I'd done in the press to then misrepresent who I was as a father, and the press ganged up in the midst of that.
Complicit with it, I'm sure.
Oh, yes, to create a misrepresentation of what I'd actually said and done. And one example, and the judge said she almost did a mistrial because of this. One example was they had an edited tape from Joe Rogan's podcast, the most downloaded podcast in history, when I was on in February.
We both done it. It's a great show.
And I said, I don't agree with Trump saying he can grab a woman by her genitals because she's throwing herself on him. But I said, it's not rape like he's in the bushes jumping out.
Yeah.
And Joe and Eddie Bravo agreed. They said, Trump's wrong to say that. It's piggish, whatever. We wouldn't talk like that.
Same as doing it.
But it's not rape because the women are throwing themselves on you. It's all just crude. We made the joke that if women said they're doing that to men, people say, oh, great girl, go after them. So we were basically looking at the different standards between feminine and male.
Yeah.
Well, they just edited, my dear ex-wife didn't do this, it was her lawyers. They just edited the front off the clip in the end where it sounded like I was legitimizing it.
Right, making excuses for it.
And they even said the clip was something else about marijuana legalization and then played that clip that wasn't in evidence. But then the media even though I went and told the media, here's the full clip, I didn't do that, even though my lawyers corrected it, even though the judge said that wasn't in evidence and that's not the full clip, as we were able to play it, the media ran with it and said, Jones says it's okay for Trump to rape women. Well, we didn't even ever say that it was rape. So that's the type of things they do where it becomes because of your speech. You don't just get your book banned. You don't just get them saying things you didn't say and then trying to ruin you. They actually come and say, even though I didn't lose my children, the media now says I lost my children. So there's an even bigger lie on top of it that I've lost my children, which isn't the case.
It's horrible. And it's a sort of shamelessness and cruelty with which they will be invasive and intrusive in a way I don't intend to be in this interview, because I'm more interested in you than in your family life. But they'll come for anything and they'll do anything. It doesn't make any difference to them what the consequences might be to your life. What I want to ask. You have this extraordinary. I've never seen anything like this before in my life. The only other person I can think of that's like this is Trump. You just have this limitless reserve of energy. It's like you take a little 5-minute break and then you come back blazing. I mean, I don't mean any offense by this, but I'm a younger guy than you, and I couldn't do half the stuff you do. I've seen you on live streams at 3 a.m. and you're still going.
Oh, you got a lot of energy, my friend.
Well, I've got some, but you. Where does it come from? Where does this come from? Is it the injustice of the way that you're covered in the media? Is it the conviction with which you're covering the subjects that you're talking about? Where does this, because it seems like you just have this utterly limitless reserve, like you're powered by a infinite gravity engine or something. You just seem like a freight train somehow.
Well, we talked on the show earlier about Thomas Jefferson being classic liberal versus what we see as these control freak authoritarians, these fascists that call themselves anti-fascist. He talked about the animating contest of liberty. And so when you know what you've really said and you see these big, powerful institutions lying about you, there's something empowering. There were only a few times I got in a fight where I wasn't 100% in the right and I got my ass kicked. But every time it was some guy a lot bigger than me that attacked me for no reason, I won the fight. And so there's something about that David versus Goliath energy thing.
It's like defiance, you feel.
Exactly, defiance, and then there's also the exhilarating surge of the feeling of victory when you defeat the Goliaths, and then you've had the experience of going through the torture, going through the test, going through the gauntlet, and then having...
And then Trump gets elected.
And then having the victory. I mean, I guess it's dopamine or whatever in the brain, but it's larger than that. I don't like con artists and thugs and people that try to keep the general public in the dark. I get a thrill out of seeing people being alive, being informed in competition. And because somebody's smarter than I am or more successful, I don't feel bad. I feel like extension.
It doesn't scare you.
That's another human. Their victories are my victories. And as long as it's humanity competing in an open system for the greater good, but also celebrating individualism, it adds to the overall true collective. So I'm fighting the false collective with a vision of the true human collective that is transcendent.
So that is classical liberalism as envisaged by J.S. Mill in On Liberty. That's exactly how the marketplace of ideas should work. It seems to me, the reason I ask that question is when I watch you, and it is one of the few shows that I watch when I'm not on it, which for somebody in our business, being as busy as we are, we don't really watch much unless...
you get burnt out on it.
Right, we don't watch much of other people's...
Well, thanks for putting up with me, because half of it's a train wreck.
No, I mean, it's not a train wreck. There's some stuff that I'm like, But I find it very, it's always entertaining. But the thing that I will say in your favor is you never, to me, come across as insincere. I believe that you mean what you say, and I believe that you mean what you're doing. And that's why I asked about where the energy reserves come from, because my hunch was that it's something a bit like me. You actually really believe this stuff, and you need to...
Exactly. I've got a stack of news we didn't get to today. I probably covered 50 stories or more.
So we spent an hour roasting Newsweek for their Madam Presidents.
And then I'll be exhausted at 6 or 7. I want to go see my family, but it's like... But there's crazy articles where they're admitting everything, and I want to go. These things get me upset.
It's like the whole world is wrong, and I've got to get through
exactly
these different things.
I feel disempowered unless I can cover something and talk about it, and then somehow I'm almost like OCD about information. If I can talk about it and give my angle, then I don't have an anxiety. Yeah. So I really, a lot of it is.
I think a lot of your viewers are like that, and I think a lot of my readers are like that, and I think it's maybe it's a boy thing. It's something I've noticed about a lot of people who spend a lot of time on the internet, a lot of people who consume a lot of news. They have that
the autistic army, which doesn't mean. It's like you can't.
No, there's something a bit Aspie about us, isn't there?
Aspergerish. You've got to like.
Someone somewhere on the internet is wrong, and I have to let them know about it. I have to fix it. I think it's fair. So you mentioned about when you're tired. Talk to me about when you're off camera. Do you have hobbies? Is there something that you do that's not related to work?
I like to go hiking. I like to go boating. I like to go see movies. I like to go out to eat. Obviously, I don't miss a lot of meals. I like to hang out with my friends. I kind of don't drink and then do drink. I like to drink alcohol. I like to basically read different art and literature. I like to look at art. I like to look at architecture. I like the catalogs. Even though I'm not buying a lot of furniture, I like to look at furniture catalogs.
Okay, we get the idea. So you're just like in your home life as you are on set. It's endless and limitless and freewheeling and full.
Yeah, I like botany. I got a bunch of plants.
Plants?
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. It's always heartening to me when I find somebody who's the same off screen as they are on, because there's a sort of authenticity and earnestness about you that I really like, because I know you mean it.
We couldn't misrepresent this train wreck.
Well, I kind of know what you mean, because I sort of feel the same about my college talks. So I'm kind of like, I catch myself being like, what are you doing? But I mean it, and people know I mean it, you know?
Even when we're joking, exactly. Like, they'll take our interview we did live on air where I'm joking about I want to marry Glenn Beck and, all this. It's all just a silly joke. They're going to say, Jones, who makes it up that he's married to Beck. No, when I'm being serious about a piece of news about some peace deal, I'm being serious. But when I'm saying I want to marry Glenn Beck, it's a joke.
Yeah, and guess what, guys? That might be a joke. Let me ask. I don't want to intrude too much into your home life because I'm more interested in you as a human being. But just in terms of logistics, like, because your life must be difficult, given the decisions that you've made, the opinions that you have, the empire you've built around yourself, and it continues to grow. As far as I can see, it's growing at rates of knots. This place is huge and buzzing.
This is just one building. We got some other ones. But yeah, we're building a new studio. Come down and be in the new one.
It's huge, and I just wonder, like, just like the day-to-day stuff. What happens if you're at home and you want tacos? Like, who does that? Because you don't strike me as the kind of guy who's got like a retinue of personal assistants. But you can't exactly walk down the street and just go to the takeout place, right? So do you have, like, how does it work just being Alex Jones when you're not on screen?
I'd say I've got usually a nanny or an assistant until about 5 o'clock, but I mean, I would just go. There's a taco place right by the house, and we get that a lot.
Oh, you do get tacos.
Yeah, and then back during the campaign, like, half the workers were wearing Bernie Sanders shirts. Then I noticed that a lot of them actually liked Trump too. They were just anti-Jeb Bush, anti-Hillary. And so a few of them, would argue with me, but they weren't really mad until Trump won. And a few of them kind of got in my face when I was getting tacos. And yeah, I mean, for every 100 people that shake my hand, and it's like every third or fourth person will shake my hand, there will be somebody who just goes, F you, Russian spy, or F you, KKK, and you're just like, it's like that person's mentally ill. It's kind of like they're a victim of propaganda. It's kind of like I'm driving up to a red light, and there's a poor schizophrenic person. Most of the homeless people have mental problems. I'm sad for them. And they're like talking to the wind. And
they spot you or something.
And then they turn and go, you're my father, I hate you. And it's some drooling 80-year-old guy. You're not mad at him. You feel sorry for him. You lock your doors. You drive on past. But it doesn't, like, morally, the leftists, this happens like maybe every 5 or 6 times I go out to eat now. They'll walk over and go, boo, everyone hates you. F you, Alex. And I'll go, thank you. They'll go, oh, yeah, knock your drink over.
But everyone doesn't hate you.
Well, no, but exactly. They want to make you think.
Yeah.
It's all with them, because everything with them is peer pressure.
Yeah.
And everything is their little bots and their fake liberalism. Yeah. And so they want to tell you you're not cool, because most of them weren't cool in school. I've learned most modern liberals were
social
nerds.
Justice warriors. It's, well, we all know how what Rush Limbaugh says about why people end up being feminists. It doesn't take a genius to work out why the boys end up being social justice warriors, why a lot of these people end up with the politics they do, and end up behaving as they do. They're empowered by media, by Hollywood, by academia, to be the bullies they never were in school.
Exactly. And that's the thing, though, is that they think I care about fake peer pressure that doesn't exist. They're trying to echo some cyber
version of popularity that doesn't matter to you.
Exactly. Well, they're trying to echo some cyberspace synthetic popularity that they believe they're part of in the third dimension at me, and I know that the last 100 people just shook my hand, literally. It's like 100 to 1 to the one person that screams Russian scum, Russian
I get the
scum.
same thing. I get the same thing.
And then I go over to them and I go, come here, come here. And they go, no, F you. And they're all, and I'm like, come on over here.
You know, it's so weird because I do the same thing. And I'll be like, wait, let's have a conversation. They're like, no. And I said, well,
I'm like, please, on camera, tell me how I'm a Russian spy or how I'm a KKK.
Explain. And I've had people come up to me, and I've been with boyfriends, and you know my taste in men. And I'm like, and they're calling me a white supremacist, and I'm like, oh, I can't even.
Well, that's the new thing where they just scream racist at everybody, and it's like some magic word they're using. And the problem is, though, all of their racist rhetoric is, I grew up, you know, in middle-class neighborhoods, never really heard any racist stuff. It is producing in some white people kind of a classic racism, which isn't good because it's meant to divide us all like we're in a prison and the government's the warden. And the left is hyping race so bad that if you're not mentally sophisticated, you start getting into it.
I think the whole culture's hyping race. It's not just the government, is it? It's Hollywood too, and so academia. It seems like the whole of establishment culture is dividing people with identity politics. And inevitably, people only know what they learn. They're only brought up how, they behave how they're trained to behave. And if you tell young kids, college students, oh, well, there's a black student union, there's a feminist society on campus, there's this, there's that, and at the same time you tell them, oh, but straight white men are the devil and poison and the oppressors of history, they're going to think, well, first of all, that doesn't jive with my experience, and is that really true about myself, and where's my special group, Whereas I think what I get from you, one of the things that perhaps we have in common, is that you're a classical liberal who believes a lot more in ideas than identity, and you want people to unite around.
Exactly. If somebody's got great food, I don't care if they're gay, straight, black, or white, or Asian, I'm going to eat there. If their music's good, I'm going to go to their concert. Yeah. I'm into individuals and their brains and the great experience of true diversity versus identity politics that creates these reservoirs that they control, that I'm supposed to only paint with these colors. I'm supposed to only see through these maps. Well, that's mental slavery. That's orthodoxy. I don't want to see the world through a priesthood that tells me how to think. I want to interface with the universe myself.
Yeah, like the cultural appropriation thing, where they say, if you can't wear a kimono if you didn't grow up, being in some way that is never quite specified.
Or they say it's insulting to dress up in a Japanese kimono for a party. No, it's fun. And then you eat Japanese food, or you want Mexican food, and it's fun to wear sombreros and drink tequila. You're not stereotyping Mexicans as drunk tequila drinkers. The point is, you want to get drunk on tequila, and then have fun. I mean, it's.
Let me ask you about Trump. Trump is the reality TV president. He has brought entertainment industry dynamics into the Oval Office. Some people love it, some people hate it. I kind of like it. I don't really hear anybody talk about the Kardashians anymore, but I do hear people say, like, what did Stephen Miller say to Jim Acosta at the briefing today? He's kind of turned the White House into an entertainment spectacle in a way that politics wasn't before. Is there a dimension of that in what you do at InfoWars? Bringing in entertainment, because you're obviously your on camera persona, very high energy. You have some sort of rhetorical and metaphoric things that you lean on sometimes that we talked about in your show earlier. Some of the language you use is strong, but completely reasonable when taken metaphorically. Is there an element of bringing in that sort of reality, spectacle, entertainment? I suppose what I'm getting at is, how consciously aware are you of the entertainment element of what you do versus, here's what you've got to hear, America?
I should try to be more entertaining. I get so serious most of the time that...
You perceive yourself as being too serious.
Yeah, and then, quite frankly, when I am being goofy and stuff, it's because it's gallows humor. I'm naturally that way. I want to do that.
Yeah.
And so if there's anything fake, it's not so much fake. I'm not as serious a person in my daily life in person as I am on air. But this is a serious topic, a whole serious thing. So I tend to get too serious. Whereas you can be serious and joke around. Then with that chemistry, we kind of had fun. It was real.
We kind of amped each other up a little bit.
Exactly.
I think we were enjoying each other's company.
Sure, but I mean, exactly. None of it's fake. It's all a real expression. But yes,
I wasn't suggesting it's fake. I think people wonder sort of how conscious you are of let's say, for instance, you know, because you have a big meme ecosystem around you, and you obviously enjoy that. You're aware of it, and you like it, right? The kind of...
Yeah, because I hate taking myself serious.
Right, that's what I think.
It's fun to be made fun of.
That's what I think I'm getting at, because people sometimes ask me, you know, is this fake? Is this a put-on persona? No, I just don't take myself as seriously as you. That's always my answer to that question. It's the same for you. Exactly.
And look, studying history, before politics was entertainment, the local stump where people stood up and spoke, the main gladiatorial event was being politically involved so that you could be freer. Yeah. Then different propagandists came out with programs where they kind of merged politics with Hollywood, Edward Bernays and others, to then basically transfer the entertainment from politics onto sports, onto movies, onto TV, onto radio.
And you get careerist politicians who become boring and too polished.
Exactly. They become boring and polished on purpose to make it an elite sport so that the general public, the unwashed, isn't involved in interfacing, because the elites complained in the 1890s in major news articles, the Americans are the highest literacy level, even though they're some coal miner. They're really into politics. It's a sport here. The elites can't take over because of this American system. We've got to make it boring. And so that's basically what they did. And so Trump is making it cool to be grassroots again. He's making it cool to be counterculture. He's making it cool to get back to what Americana was. Trump's very Americana.
And I think there's a reason people like him and you and me, and the three of us are very different. But there's a reason that we're all liked, I think, and it's that we're not perfect. We're kind of scruffy, rough around the edges in some ways, you know?
But real.
Real, yeah. Real. We mean what we say.
People instinctively can look. People know a commercial, even if it's got top actors. They know it's fake. You look at something, you know when it's real. I mean, they know we're real. That's why they constantly say we're not real. That's why MSM keeps saying he's an actor, or you're a fake, or you're a fraud. Well, what does it matter who we really are? What we say is what matters. When Trump breaks the back of political correctness, when Trump defends the borders, when Trump crushes ISIS, when Trump gets $4 trillion in the stock market, like Christ said, judge a tree by its fruits. You believe in Christ or not, don't you judge a tree by its fruits? Like if a tree, you eat something off a tree, it kills you, you don't eat off the tree. If something produces good stuff for everybody, is it good or is it bad? And I think right there is what we're talking about with Trump. And he is the underdog. And they're trying to make him incompetent, they're trying to demonize him, they're trying to destroy him, because they are the scum that while we were asleep came in and took over the political process.
The genie that won't go back in the bottle that Trump has unleashed is that preference cascade.
It's just like they have these fake polls where he's 15 points behind on election day, but he wins. Yeah. And they've got fake polls now saying he's behind. They're fake. They admit, most people even in those polls saying, no, I don't like Trump, it's because they're embarrassed on the telephone. They don't want to say they support him, so that's what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly, but the dam is breaking now. And the dam is breaking because people are realizing that we tell the truth more often than they do.
And like you said during the break, saying we're Nazis doesn't work, saying we're racist. So now John Oliver last week had like a child product that's like private labeled from a Whole Foods company. Now I guess Bezos owns it, you might take it away from me. But we private label, just a 30-year-old product that's got herbs and stuff that calm children down. And he said, oh, you want to knock children out so you can basically, I mean, that's all they've got. But
that's the implication, yeah.
But then that's all they've got left.
White supremacists didn't work, so they're going for pedophile, something I know well. Let's talk, you mentioned about sort of judging by the fruit. I mentioned on your show today, the history has this sort of habit, if you wait long enough, Alex Jones seems to get proven right about a remarkable number of things. And the classic clip that they always play, trying to, unsuccessfully I think, paint you as a figure of fun, in the way that they tried to do with Trump, again, failing, is the frogs. And
let's talk about the frogs.
Given that, well, look, let's just
the WB frog is gay.
But look, the WB frog does look gay. But you're in one of your riffs, and it's very. I've watched the clip because I went back and watched it. It's very clear from context that you're in a riff. I just don't want stuff in the water that turns the frog gay. You're talking about chemicals and all the rest of it. Now it makes perfect sense in context. Obviously, it's funny because you have a very animated manner when you wrench it out of context. But what do I read in the Daily Mail this week? Well, it turns out contraceptive pills and cleaning, have you seen this? Contraceptive pills and cleaning products that are flushed down the toilet are turning 1 in 5 male river fish transgender. You wait long enough, Alex Jones gets proven right again. Now, I'm not saying right about everything, and I don't think you'd be offended by me saying that we disagree on some things, and some things have been have not turned out to be right. But let me ask about that, because I think you and I both have an experience, I think, of tumbling out of internet culture and into the real world, in a way, in the last couple of years.
Exactly, like you're saying things, not knowing you're totally being paid attention to, and then the aftermath later, they...
And not being paid attention to in a particular kind of way, you know? It's like, if you're going on a sort of performance riff.
Yeah, the general topic's true, but then there's some satire. You've got to watch out, because now the MSM's watching, they're going to present it as if you meant it.
Yeah, exactly. So they pick the most ridiculous bit of the riff, of the bit, you know, that you're doing, and they pull it out and they say, you think that the frogs are turning gay, or something, because it sounds as ridiculous as possible. Let me ask you a serious question, though. Is there anything from an earlier period in your career that now you have the stature and prominence and success that you do, and your organization is growing, your platform is growing, you have influence on the president, clearly, and influence on with his voters, you undoubtedly helped to put him in office. Is there anything earlier in your career that you somewhere you wish you hadn't gone, or something you wish you hadn't said? Is there anything that you might have done differently if you had realized that people were going to start behaving like this? Or there may not be. You may say, you know what, screw them. I don't care. You know, is there anything?
Well, yeah, knowing how the media misrepresents, would I have done things different, which I do now? Because sometimes they'll attack me and say something that's not true, and then I'll quote what they said that wasn't true, and they'll use that quote as if I said it. So I'm more careful now.
Sort of this Kafka-esque cycle where they use your debunking of them to claim a fresh round.
Yes, they use where you say, I did not say this.
And then they use everything after I did not say.
I did, literally. And so they've also, I can't show weakness, which I wasn't trying to do before. I was trying to be journalistic, and now I realize I can't do it, because here's an example. Before Pizzagate became Pizzagate, I told my crew, and I said on air, this is BS, this is a honeypot to distract off real sex crimes, stop covering it. And I went on air and said, I don't think there's anything going on in this pizza place. They then took that as weakness and said I'd created it, and said that I needed to be sued and all these things.
Merely because you'd spoken about it. And it's the reason.
Merely because I'd covered news. But I mean, here's what happened. You had Podesta in the emails, and you had Wiener and the sexting the young girl and all this stuff. And we're breaking this, and it's in the news, and it's in the WikiLeaks, and there's weird spirit cooking and, you know, Aleister Crowley stuff. And we're just saying, we're not saying they're killing kids. They're just, this is creepy. Then I saw the New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, about a week later going, at this pizza place, the alt-right says they're killing kids in a basement. And I'd gone on vacation for a week, and I'm on vacation, and I see us covering it, and I call my folks, and I go, I bet there's not even a basement in there. Pizza's code words for, you know, child porn and stuff, according to FBI files. They're diverting onto a pizza place. You watch, it's a honeypot. Shut this down. I get back, I say, folks, it's a diversion of what's in the WikiLeaks to say now that everything's this pizza place. I said it's a diversion. The media then took that as weakness and then said, oh, Jones is behind all this, and he's already retracted. Then a guy goes in there with a gun, supposedly shoots a hole in the ceiling, and then they all say Jones caused this separate deal, Sandy Hook. I'm genuinely, you know, looking at Sandy Hook, and my listeners, one thing I've learned is not be bullied by your listeners. They got really pissed when that happened 5 years ago or whatever, and said, Alex, it's all fake, it's all actors. And I said, no, there's real school shootings, and this guy's on Prozac drugs, and, you know, he wasn't supposed to legally get a gun. And they're like, no, it's staged. Because there was green screen with Anderson Cooper. And I'm like, yeah, but Anderson Cooper's fake locations before. It doesn't mean it's all fake. Yeah. And so I looked at both sides and had debates. And then the media took the fact that I finally said about 3 years ago, no, I think kids died there. They then went, oh, look, he created it, and he's backtracking on it. And then even when I told Megyn Kelly, I said, I think the kids died there. She wouldn't put it in the piece. Because now it's almost like I killed the kids. It's like he's the guy that didn't care about dead kids. He's the guy that said all this, when I never said it or did it. And then again, they edit the tapes, and it's the same thing with the whole situation with Pizzagate. I said, I don't know, in a live piece, I said, I don't know if Hillary hurt kids or killed kids with this, Podesta email stuff, but I said what I do know is she funded the Arab Spring, she funded the Libya disaster, she funded ISIS taking over Syria, as President Trump has said, and they killed hundreds of thousands of people, they sold tens of thousands of people into sex slavery. Hillary Clinton is responsible for this. Megyn Kelly on Fox edited it together where I said Hillary's killing kids in a basement. I'd said, I don't know if she's doing that, it's probably made up, but I know she did that. They edited that with audio, there was video. They edited it together to say Hillary's killing kids in the bottom of a pizza place. See, at a certain point, I go, would I do things differently? Yeah, I would, but you can't do things differently when they're going to take this interview and edit it. The public has to come to their own realization that if you see cut, and back and forth and stuff, when you see jump cuts, you need to go look at it or not believe what you've seen.
Yeah.
I know I'm ranting. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I think it's very. I think that's reasonable. The thing for me, I think what you do is process journalism, and I think that the only difference between what you do and what some people on the left do is that you have the wrong politics. Process journalism, let's say in the tech industry, like TechCrunch is a blog that covers Silicon Valley, like funding stories and all the rest of it. They're completely brazen about publishing rumor as fact, publishing rumors in the investment community as news. Right? Terrible track record. Founder Michael Arrington completely unashamed about it,
which is really pump and dump being hidden.
Yeah, well, yes, yeah, that's a whole other thing, but sure, it is. And they're completely brazen about it, and he invented this whole kind of thing. Well, it's called process journalism. We just do what we know at the time, and this is, the never wrong for long principle in 24-hour rolling news.
Sure, we jump on it and then we change it as we're,
and we'll update it as and when we get.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest. That's what we do. We're live on air. We don't know. We look at the available facts. We speculate, and we say when we're speculating.
The thing that I'm interested in is the hypocrisy and it's the double standards in all things. That's what I'm always looking for. It seems to me that InfoWars has got some things wrong, like every other journalistic organization in the country, everyone. But like Breitbart, InfoWars seems to be, and I think they're very different organizations, but it seems to be under a unique kind of scrutiny, where when you get something wrong or you adjust a previous statement, it becomes like it's like a meltdown. It's like a thermonuclear bomb goes off. Suddenly, it's some massive thing. But when CNN doesn't just get things wrong, but it seems to me tells the public lies.
And gets caught in emails lying.
And gets caught in emails. The rest of the press doesn't just turn a blind eye, but comes out to defend them.
What you've hit is
comes out to defend CNN for knowingly lying to its viewers, when as best I can work out, as best I can tell, and I've hung around you a little bit, we've met a couple of times, been on the show now, I believe that you are sincere. I believe that you're a sincere, earnest, and decent person. The best I can tell is that you do your equivalent of 24-hour rolling news coverage. And you freewheel, and you spitball, and you say what's going on, and you say it like you see it, you look at what's out there, and you have a sort of continuous rolling adjustment attitude, just like the rest of 24-hour news ecosystem elsewhere.
Exactly, and we respond
but
to
you're
our
not
listeners.
But you're not judged the same at all.
No, and I mean that's really it, is that CNN and all these guys get caught lying on purpose.
But they do it on purpose. You don't do it on purpose. I don't believe you lie to your viewers on purpose.
No, we've certainly made plenty of mistakes, and
I mean, I'm not saying I've watched, more than maybe 30, 40 shows, right? But I have watched 30 or 40 shows. I don't believe that you lie to your viewers on purpose.
Well, you were there with me today.
I do think CNN does.
Oh, well, they've been caught. I mean, they're in the WikiLeaks, fixing the debates, fixing polls, having Hillary direct them on what they're supposed to do. It's supposed to be game over at that point. And then now you've got CNN caught in all these new lies and new deception. But see, they know that. So now all they are is disruptors. And now all they do is fights with those of us that are still important, people that still, have some pull with the public. And they try to get a debate going with us to give themselves some type of pertinence, some type of value. And I think that whole system for them is basically coming to an end. But
I think so too. I think very often people accuse their enemies of exactly the opposite of what they know them really to be. And I also think that people accuse others of what they most fear might be true about themselves, which is, I think, at the heart of the whole fake news thing. You know, the reason that the left invented fake news is that they were becoming aware of the fact that they were lying to people.
And now CNN says stop using it.
Yeah, no. Oh, this has backfired on us because you've realized the trick we're up to, so please stop using this expression fake news.
No.
Now, you have been accused of being insincere and being an actor and being fake with people. Does it hurt?
No, because I'm so sincere that they have to attack my strength, just like they did in the custody trial for my children. The media was all there, called in by the lawyers on the other side, and they wanted to introduce some video from like 6, 7 years ago where I dressed up like the Joker and said, take Prozac, you know, drink the fluoride, it's going to kill you, you're going to see pretty colors. And I acted totally psychotic. And my lawyer said, this is unadmissible. This is like Jack Nicholson playing the part of the Joker and then them saying that's who he is. Clearly, I was being an actor in that role. Anyone could watch it and tell I was dressed up like the Joker. That's not Alex Jones. That's me having some fun.
Alex Jones playing a character.
Yeah.
And they're taking the words of the character as being your sincere statement.
Well, then they tried to say those are his sincere statements. So we said, no, I'm being an actor. They went, oh, it's all an act. And it's like saying, no, if I'm in a college play, you know, playing Captain Ahab on Moby Dick, I'm not really a captain.
I'm not really obsessed with a whale.
But I'm also not faking the rest of my life. Like when I'm being an actor or saying a joke, saying, you know, that I want to marry Glenn Beck like we were doing on the show, that's clearly joke time. But then when I read a Wall Street Journal article saying that they've got a grand jury impaneled against Trump, that's real. And I'm showing you the article. So again, they play these games hoping that their audience isn't paying attention.
It doesn't affect you emotionally.
No, it doesn't. It frustrates me that there's people this corrupt that would continue to organize themselves like this.
Seems to be more fuel for your fire. You know, maybe it doesn't upset you personally that people would say that about you, but it adds more grist to the mill. So
exactly. I want to go show where they're liars.
Right, and it just makes you even more determined. And this, I think, is the Trump instinct. It's the Breitbart instinct. It's this new populist, nationalist, you know, fearless revolution against the cultural commissars.
Well, exactly. The cultural commissars.
So what we all have in common, as different as we all are, is that defiance and that determination.
Defiance is key, and leadership. Realizing we're promoting Magna Carta, Renaissance, 1776, what works. The big, sexy, big-titted hit that Robert Duvall talks about in Network. You know, we got a big-titted hit. I mean, America, freedom, thousands of choices of everything, incredible diversity, true liberalism, this mosaic of cultures coming together and the best coming out of each group and mixing together. That's true liberalism, not a bunch of weirdos managing all these groups and making them all neurotic and fighting with each other. What's sexy is America, is the diversity. And people go, oh, well, this wasn't diverse in America's history. Well, it was a lot more diverse than anybody else. They come to the most diverse, transcendent group knowing we have a conscience and knowing we're liberal, and then try to make us feel bad going, oh, look, you did all these bad things. Knowing we'll go, oh, my God, we did those things. Instead of saying, you're the best there ever was, let's take this to the next level.
This is a bit like...
I'm an American cultist. I'm a Renaissance cultist. I'm a cult member of freedom.
I like that.
I mean, I'm so liberal growing up my whole life that I don't even think about what color somebody is or what their sexual preferences, what they're doing. It's what they actually produce, what they stand for, and how they treat me. I don't even look at it. I mean, I was growing up in Dallas, not even understanding that a group of racist black guys would come over and try to beat me up because I was white. I just thought those were mean black guys, or a group of redneck guys because, you know, they were a gang of white guys and I was with a hot girl would come up and try to beat me up. That's how humans act in gangs. Now through sociology, anthropology, psychology, I can look back and see what actually happened. But I was such a purist then of just being a human that I did not, as a tribalist, think that these were tribal groups attacking me, because to me they were just other humans. They were bad people, but I didn't see them for what color they were. Yeah. Only later did I see they were operating in a gang mentality. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. You've had plenty of experience watching how the media operates to be skeptical of them. But I sense in you, in addition to that, a sort of deep antipathy toward authority figures in general. Perhaps a skepticism about people who think they know better than you do how you should lead your life. Whether it's academics, journalists, Hollywood producers, you seem to have a sort of default position, and I share it with you, to be clear, I have the same thing. You have a default position of skepticism, and you tend to look for ulterior motives with any authority figure. And I share this with you. And I don't know why I am like that, but do you have any insight as to why you might be like that? Is there an event or a person in your life that might have made you that way? Because it's what's made you so interesting to watch, because you're always immediately looking, as any great journalist is, really, you know, you're always immediately looking for the story behind the story. When I watch InfoWars, what I see you doing is taking this and then, right, okay, but how did this come to pass? Who's responsible for this? What are the inner workings? You're always looking, you know, a couple of layers beyond the surface story.
Well, sure. Why are we being presented this? But
what I was interested in is how you became that way. Is there something that you can identify that made you so skeptical by default of authority figures?
I think studying history, it's not that authority overall is bad, it's that it has to be watched. Sometimes authority can do great things, sometimes authority can do really bad things, but authority is powerful, it's dangerous. And I wasn't really a drug user in high school, and then I would see, and I would see police department doing drug sweeps at the school that I'd seen dealing drugs 2 weeks before at a party. And I would speak out against it, and then the cops got really upset at me and stuff. So, you
had that kind of defiance then?
Well, I mean, sure. And I mean, I knew about government drug dealing. It's not saying I'm saying all government's dealing drugs. I just knew that a lot of times there's a story behind a story. There's something going on that's not just on the surface, and that anybody that's successful in business or in the stock market or with women or anywhere understands the surface is never what's going on. And that really all of success is about understanding cycles, systems, and different layers to things. And if you can get to the bottom of something, then you can master it.
Like economists will always look at incentives, you know, why, not what people do, but why they behave in predictable ways.
Exactly, and then seeing mass movements in behavior, and then mastering that is manipulating the behavior for the greater outcome.
And this is what we're talking about with the preference cascades and preference falsification, about, you know, sort of the delusion of the population.
And we've got the entire Hollywood, MSM, corporate whore combine trying to suppress nationalism, free market, Renaissance. It's classical liberalism. They're calling themselves liberalism, trying to suppress it. And because the opposition to that was called conservative, even though it's just as bad with the rhinos and people, it's still exploding and people are going to it, even though it's far from perfect, because it's seen as the opposition. And Trump understands he's riding a wave of that populism, which he supported his whole life. So it's a hell of a time to be alive. And the establishment is whistling past the graveyard if they think they're going to turn this around.
I mean, I think that's sort of unarguably true. And you look at stories that one of the things I always find interesting is the stories they try to stamp out, irrespective of whether they turn out to be true or not, irrespective of what turns out to be.
Tells you what they're scared of.
Yeah, it does.
They don't want Seth Rich looked into.
The Seth Rich is exactly.
You got Cy Hirsch coming out saying he talked to the FBI.
Seth Rich is what I was going to bring up.
That they said that he was the WikiLeaker. You have WikiLeaks basically saying it. And they're acting like Seth Rich never even died in the media.
Right, and they will ridicule and demean and belittle and try to stamp on anyone who invokes his name, while wall-to-wall coverage is being broadcast about a Russia conspiracy for which there is still no evidence.
Exactly. You got a guy shot in the back. And you've got the top journalist in the world, and then WikiLeaks saying that he was the leaker. And then if you mention it, it's like chickens with their heads cut off. We should be going towards where the flak is. Clearly, the Seth Rich thing.
What do you think the state of America would be now if Hillary Clinton were president? How much of a mess of things do you think she'd have made by now?
Well, the truth is they say deep state is battling Trump. Deep state's just the bureaucracy, the intelligence agencies. And the truth is the deep state turned against Hillary and against the Bushes and said the people are sick of this, and you guys have sold the country out, and you've got a beef with the nation and a beef with prosperity. And the deep state itself said, we want prosperity. We don't want to commit political suicide. We don't want austerity. And the deep state turned against a large part of it. The grassroots deep state, the pragmatic deep state, turned against
what kind of people are you talking about?
Mainly the folks that actually are mid-level and low-level, but also some high-level, that actually do the work, do the analysis, do the killing. Almost all the people that actually kill people.
So you're talking about intelligence agencies? And
actual field operators, actual assassins, actual black ops are like almost completely Americana pro-Trump. Yeah. It's only like the weird pinhead power guys.
No, I mean, my security detail, all former Navy SEALs, love the guy. Love the guy. Yeah, he could do no wrong.
There's not anyone...
They love him. And these are not stupid people. These are some of the smartest people you'll ever meet. They're brilliant. Like, they're ruthless, you know, like...
Because they recognize Trump is the man in the arena.
They love him.
Trump is the man in the arena. He really is, and he's bringing the prosperity. He's up against... This is what real men are into.
And it's funny because, you know... they're not meatheads. You're like, my security...
Cy Hirsch is cheering in these recordings, going, Trump's a great guy. I just wish he wasn't so... How much danger he's in, and I wish he had better advisors. He's a super liberal. Because it's like, Trump's real. And even though I don't agree with all what he's doing, it's so real. I'm sorry, go ahead. You were saying you're...
No, I just, you know, these people are not meatheads. You know, these people are they're like the elite of the, you know, Navy SEALs like this.
Yeah, you got guys with PhDs trying to get into that.
And they love Trump. They love the guy. Let me ask you a naughty question, mischievous question. I've looked into some of this stuff. This is kind of your wheelhouse, and I just want to know because I'm fascinated by this. Clinton murders, like, it just, there's so many...
Arkansas?
This is one of the things that you go down a rabbit hole when you start looking into this on the internet, and you get so drawn into this stuff that you end up kind of like, you don't know which way is left and right and up and down.
Here's the deal. They had Fahmy Malek as the county Arkansas medical examiner at the town where all the kids were getting killed. Anybody that asked any questions got killed at this Mena airport. Then he's made the medical examiner of the whole state. People were shot with machine guns, their arms and legs cut off in trash bags. He would rule them suicides. So that's where the term Arkansas came from. I don't, maybe he was blind, I don't know. I'm sure Fahmy's a great guy, rest in peace. I'm told he died a few years ago.
Maybe he was blind. I think if she were president, one or the two of us would have had a horrible automobile accident.
Well, that's a good question. God, in fact, we should do whole shows. Like Rand Paul, I think, is like the best guy in the Senate. Drudge has said that. And he said, I wake up every day thinking, God, Hillary's not there. She had all these wars planned. She wanted to go after every enemy. She said she wanted to shut down the independent press. Yeah. So I'll ask you, you've been doing the interview, what does the audience think would have happened? That's a great show topic if Hillary had gotten in, because that's what I'm saying. The deep state didn't turn against her because they didn't want power and control. It's kind of like Hitler's general staff turned against him the last year. It wasn't because they were good. It's because they realized that he was about to burn the whole country down.
So as we come to the end, I want to talk about a group that did not leave Hillary by the roadside. They stuck with her right through to the end, and it's the mainstream media. You have been on the front lines along with a lot of other people of, well, I think you played a significant role in undermining public confidence in the mainstream media. It's my view that they deserve it, and that really they did it to themselves, and that if they told the truth...
Exactly. They blame me. I would love that laurel.
Yeah, like I would
pointing this out, it's not hard.
I know exactly. Like I would love to take the credit, but you guys, I don't think Trump did it to them. I don't think.
No, they did it. They did it. They did it. I think. If they'd have run Joe Biden for all his criminal activity, he comes off like a regular guy. There's something genuine, like he said. You know, everybody hates Hillary and she's a total fake, but vote for her. They all yay. They wouldn't cheer for her because he's like street level. He's a real guy. I think Biden may have beaten Trump. But the elite want a robot like Hillary because they're similar. They want that coldness. But anyways, what were you saying?
Well, I was just going to ask you, do you think there's a sort of extinction level event coming? Do you think there's going to be a moment? And is it going to be precipitated maybe by something bad that CNN does?
Is there any Waterloo for the fake media?
Is there a Waterloo for the fake news media?
Respectfully, I think the Waterloo's already happened. If you look at this and you look at mainstream media, they've already basically collapsed. It's just that the big corporate powers don't want the facade to go down and admit the defeat. It's like Piers Morgan took a show from 10 million viewers to 1 million viewers.
Yeah.
They didn't want to announce they'd failed and that people actually liked Larry King. It was just that cable viewership was going down overall. So they said, oh, he'll do a monthly show for a year, a magazine show, kind of like they're putting Megyn Kelly out to pasture. They never admit defeats. Those are hidden. But they've already had their Waterloo. And so we have to ask ourselves, what are they now? They're just a disruptive force.
So your argument is that the legitimacy of the media is gone, and we're in this kind of Walking Dead period where they're being propped up by big bank accounts, but without really any legitimacy with the public. There's certainly plenty of evidence.
You've crystallized it. That's it. And even big old magazine shows that had some good production value. And you tune into Dateline NBC, if it was a show about a rock star or a show about New Zealand, I'm glued. It's high production value, really entertaining, really interesting. It's the politics that makes you leave because it's fake. It's not that folks are against politics, it's the fakeness of their politics. So they've been found, like in Megyn Kelly's show, like one part has a bunch of viewers about New Zealand or about some whiskey brewery or about some hockey team, but as soon as it goes political, it goes down. Now, when we do politics, it goes up because people see it as real. It's that people directly aren't even against mainstream media. They're against it being political because they recognize it's a fraud. And so that's what they have to come to grips with, is that the people have completely divorced them. MSM could say the sky was blue at high noon. People would go outside to make sure it was true.
I think that's true. I think you're right about that. Okay, few last brief questions. First of all about Trump, and then a couple of last things about you. I like to do this at the end of my interviews, just a little sort of thought experiment challenge kind of thing. Summarize the Trump presidency in 3 words.
Revolutionary, trailblazing, rebirth.
Do you think he should fire Mueller?
He should have fired Mueller a long time ago. He was put in by Rosenstein. The whole thing's staged. They admit it's political. 99.8% of their donations are Democrats. Everything they accuse him of, Hillary's done, and now he's impaneled a grand jury in the District of Columbia of hand-picked politicos. And
it's too late now, huh?
Yeah, Trump keeps thinking he could just deliver on the economy and that the public would love that. And they want to start his criminal indictment, move that to the House, and in the midst of the investigation, kill him.
You think they want to kill Trump?
I get why on the air earlier you're like, oh, well, I'll go with you. They want to remove him but not kill him. They're saying they want to kill him because they need to say that to get the intelligence operators to decide, well, we'll follow orders. This is about to happen. They need to get, see, this isn't known, but to defend the United States, a program was started during the Cold War where they took Army officers and other people and they sheep dip them into domestic intelligence operations. And so there's a whole shadow army of 100,000 people at any one time. Delta Force is just one manifestation of that are operatives, hit teams in every town. And then now they've been training those hit teams the last 5-6 years to kill veterans, kill conservatives, kill police chiefs, kill mayors, and that finally woke them up. When they were training to kill Ron Paul and kill me and kill Donald Trump, people were, and kill, Matt Drudge and everybody, I mean, literally, I've taught people that have been trained on it. That was the final wake up that, oh my God, there's a real takeover, Alex Jones is right. So we almost have to thank the globalists for doing this, causing this awakening, but they've got this whole Praetorian Guard here ready to move against the American people. But what the globalists don't get is we already reached those people before they did. And almost none of them are going to go along with the program. So if the globalists are dumb enough to try this 7 days in May, I think it's going to be their Waterloo. I think it's going to be their last stand.
Who's your political hero?
This is not an ass-kicking or ass-kissing contest. But I have to say, because I've lived it and watched it and know the facts, Donald Trump's my political hero because he's delivered common sense nationalism, prosperity, stood up against the deep state, and has been so attacked that I'm a fellow traveler, to use a communist term. I have experienced the hate he's experienced, but at a lesser level. And I have not seen other people that are willing to take those attacks.
Just absorb the fire.
Just absorb it. So you have to admire him. But other than that, it'd have to be, you know, somebody like George Washington or the folks that were in England that got slavery banned in most of the world, even though the West is accused of creating slavery. You know, you can say what you want about Gandhi, but he stood up against the British Empire and freed hundreds of millions of people. I mean, Martin Luther King, I mean, said bring everybody together, regardless of color. It's about ideas. It's about what you do in your life. A great free market speech.
Controversial position now. I mean, Martin Luther King's...
And I really admire him because I've actually watched and listened to his speeches. It's like, I inherently agree with all this.
To the progressive left, you know, looking at the contents of someone's character instead of the color of their skin is a controversial proposition.
But as a business owner...
They would say they would all...
I want to hire people that get the job done. I don't care what color they are.
To a liberal, and I don't think this is pushing it too far, and you and I cover the crazy end.
Martin Luther King is a bad person, according to them. I didn't say that. Don't edit that.
If you took his name away from some of the statements he's made, and if you told them that a Republican politician had said it, they'd call it racist.
That gave me an idea. People have actually gone out with JFK quotes and had Democrats say they're racist. I think we should go out with Martin Luther King and say, Trump said that. Is that racist?
See if campus feminists say that Martin Luther King is racist. It's certainly a great video idea. Last couple of questions, just a few light...
I like them all. I'm enjoying this.
Yeah, me too. What is a habit that you have, either a daily habit or a routine that you have, that people might be surprised by? Is there something about what you do outside of the show, when you're off air, that people might find unusual or surprising? Because when I asked you earlier about what hobbies you have, it was this huge catalogue of amazing things that I believe that you do all of them, because you seem to have a limitless capacity for, you know, work and self-education and experimentation, limitless energy. But is there anything, and that was kind of an answer that I thought you might give me, and I believe you. But is there anything that people might be surprised by, you know, in your?
I mean, honestly, I tried to swear it off like 5 years ago, but I've cut back. I really love people that attack me, and it's not like some masochist thing.
But people are going to know that about you. They're going to predict that about you.
But I mean, it's so funny.
But that's your guilty pleasure. That's really how you get off, is people coming for you.
I mean, to be honest, I almost masturbate to it. I don't know why. I don't understand it. Because some of it's true. But here's the thing. Someone gushing and saying how good I am, I know I'm not, so I can't stand it.
Because it feels fake to you, and you're about your truth.
But it's like...
But somebody really coming for you kind of...
Someone saying outrageous BS is like, I guess I already feel guilty about things in my life, so that hearing pure BS kind of like feels good because your brain knows it's bull.
Because they're coming for stuff.
I guess I'm my own biggest critic.
Yeah.
Literally. I mean, because I got a mess in many ways. Okay, I mean, a hobby is eating too much, drinking too much. I mean, those are bad hobbies I do. I mean, these are great questions, because it's like making me psychoanalyze.
Well, I'm just interested in you because I think you're one of the most interesting people in America, and I don't think anyone ever asks you interesting questions. I don't think Megyn Kelly asked you interesting questions. I don't think anyone in any interview I've ever read or ever watched with you asks you interesting questions about you. And I find you fascinating. I enjoy your...
Well, you're fascinating, too.
Well, thank you. I
knew you were coming in, but everybody's like in a huge buzz you were coming in. All these people calling me.
Well, thank you.
I like the fact you bounce back from all their BS.
Well, I think that it's something that we have in common. We have a few things in common.
Because I heard what you said. You were taking bad things that happened to you and making it a joke and transcending it. That's your personal story. You're not the thing they say that really they are.
I think that's probably true. And I think one of the things that one of the reasons maybe that we're relaxed around one another and we can have such fun on air as we did is that we both have that kind of instinct that, you know, nothing's going to take you down. If you want to come for me, you better leave me in 6 different pieces, in 6 different coffins, buried on different continents, you know, like blowtorched, flat.
Exactly.
You better leave me in the dust on all 5.
I forget who said it, but knowing thyself is real knowledge. And so I know my negatives, I know my problems, and they're plenty. Anybody that's on a power trip thinks they've got all the answers, that person's going towards destruction. Fools always fall off the edge of the cliff. But that's why we're confident, because it's like all they ever hit us with is BS. anything real I get hit with, I can then try to make myself better. Like when I get real criticisms from family or friends, I'm like, you're right. But it's never genuine. It's always some comical twisting, and it's incredibly entertaining, though, because it's like the shit they come up with is like, who the hell can sit around and come up with this?
You've answered my main question, which is what is your guilty pleasure, and it sounds like it's the same as mine. All right. Well, one last question, and this is a serious one, and I do want an honest answer from you about this. How do you feel about the cancellation of Megyn Kelly's show?
I'm actually sad because watching her burn up is entertaining.
It's not as much fun as you thought it would.
I never showed you the text message. Maybe later we get a shot of it. And again, I've never taped anybody in 22 years, but she calls Nico up on the weekend. The producer does. It's on a Saturday. And he goes, she wants to talk to Alex right now. And Nico calls me. I'm like at the gym in the morning. I go, okay. And then sure enough, I call the number, and she's like, oh my God, you're so handsome. You're so incredible. And I go, hold on just a moment. I'm like digging around the car. I have a backup cell phone because I didn't even have the app on my phone to record a phone call. I've got the regular app to record. So I start recording her, and she's like, oh God, I'm obsessed with you and all this stuff. Because I knew she wasn't. And,
but she's trying to...
She was worse than like a strip dancer at a topless club sitting on your lap saying she wants to marry you, so she's gotten your money. I mean, it was tart level. And that's why I recorded her. I've never recorded anybody else clandestinely. But I told her in the interview, and then I told her in a text, I said, listen, you think you're going to destroy me, you've burned yourself down. And she did, because she doesn't get... I could have done a terrible job, which I probably did overall, let her interview me for like 10 hours here. It doesn't matter because they're so discredited. The fact that they set themselves up as the establishment against me, no matter what they did, the public, talk about confirmation bias, was going to see them as the bad guy, which has got to scare them. My big, fat, ugly ass, tired after 10 hours of them taping me. They got me stumbling a few times, edited together. I mean, if they can't be...
It's the worst they can get, and they still didn't get you.
And then she went from 10 million viewers before she took over to 8 million, 6 million, to 2 million, and they canceled the show. That's half the ratings of the biggest other show they had on. Who's the...
Reruns of some other...
Who's the Yogi Bear.
So it hasn't been as much fun for you watching her crash down as you thought. I think she was as much a victim of what you're talking about as of something else that the progressive left does, which is a strategy they have to delegitimize people, to drive people from public life. And it's the reason that I have started my own imprint to publish my book and hopefully more other people's books later, and why you have built your entire an empire of your own. And it's that they attempt to paint any journalist investigating a subject with the subject's sins as a way of bullying people out of covering interesting people, as a way of scaring journalists off from covering conservatives. So they will say, why are you giving a platform to person X? When it's quite clear that person X is newsworthy and noteworthy in their own regard, right? But they try to taint the journalist with the sins of the subject, having not even seen or read the interview yet, as a way of kind of bullying establishment journalists out of covering people like you. And so half of her problem, I think, was what you were talking about. But the other half of the problem was that other people didn't want you on TV.
They wanted to bully. Of course, you're right. That was the whole story. I mean, we're talking about Megyn Kelly. You're right. 95% of it, not even the other half, was the corporate establishment even set it up to be a big PR stunt, to even burn her. She was hired to be burned, not just because she attacked Trump, to then make it about the big PR event that Alex shouldn't be on air, he should be no platformed, he's evil, and anyone that talks about him will be destroyed as well. That all went according to their plan, and so that's why I said I feel sorry for her.
You think they hired her with this episode?
Absolutely. That's why I feel sorry for her. They knew that when she went up against Trump, she took a show from 5 million viewers to 2 million. Yeah. They knew she was politically dead. They knew they were never going to finish her contract. That's why they had...
So they were hoping that she would do enough damage to you that it was worth spending the money on her.
I think that was part of it, and they just used her as a political stunt for NBC, but it just all... That's what I mean. there's already so much human instinctive knowledge, even though humanity's somewhat asleep still. Even the sleeping giant of humanity is so much more genius than them that they had no idea what they were plugging into.
It does seem to me, I mean, we'll finish this interview where we started it with, I guess, with my observation that the American media seems to be the dumbest in the world. And for so many smart people, so many people who consider themselves so highly educated, they got degrees from the right universities, they have the right kind of politics, they express the right sort of views on the sorts of subjects you're allowed to talk about in polite society. For people so smart, they don't half act dumb.
Well, that's the thing. They do everything that will blow up in their face, will create a Streisand effect, and that's why I'm so glad. Because back when that controversy with you happened, it was all made up, we were trying to get you on then, when nobody else was, and everybody was demonizing you. That's when I wanted you on more than ever, was when you were the devil, because you weren't the devil, and I wanted to expose that. But now you've been back doing a great job. Thank God you didn't just curl up because these people made up something about you. They're the fraud. We should revel, as you're doing, and celebrate this. Celebrate they banned your book. Celebrate you came back from the dead. Celebrate this because...
Well, I think that's what we did on the show today. It felt like a celebration.
It was. Well, I'm just glad you came to interview me.
Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Roger Stone, sitting in for my good friend Alex Jones. You can catch the rest of that extraordinary interview between my friend Milo and Alex Jones by going to Milo's YouTube page or the InfoWars YouTube page. I know I want to see the rest of it. It is not lost on me that last week when he appeared here on InfoWars, my friend Milo wore a vintage, genuine Bill Clinton rape whistle. A true piece of art. This is an extraordinary time to be alive because we have seen the real Donald Trump, and I like what I see. You see, first the president very quickly put out an appropriate statement regarding the tragedy in Charlottesville. But that did not satisfy his critics. He denounced bigotry and hate, but you see, that was not sufficient. They demanded that he denounce specific groups, including white supremacists, of whom I do not know any. So I suspect this is a rather small but vocal group of haters. He did that, and then his critics wanted to know what took him so long. The truth is Donald Trump cannot please his critics. And then he finally, fed up, had that moment of truth where he said, wait a minute, there's plenty of blame to go around here. Those who expose, those who condone, those who perpetrate violence on the left, the most violent elements of the Black Lives Matter movement, for example, they are equally responsible for the climate in America. They are equally to be denounced and rejected, as violence is never a solution. Now, the more one examines the events of Charlottesville, anyone who's an experienced political operative who understands agate prop, things begin to seem quite fishy. I don't deny that there probably were a few neo-Nazis and Klansmen interspersed through the mob for authenticity. But all this has the absolute feel of an astroturf effort by the Soros ops. Jason Kessler, who appears to be the chief organizer, is identified now as a white supremacist, but not very long ago he was an ardent Obama supporter and working in the Occupy demonstrations. I still have my investigation underway, but others with key ties who are allegedly now Klansmen or skinheads or neo-Nazis have very strange recent activities of activism, I should say, on the political left. Then what are we to make of the Craigslist ad that was found in Charlottesville soliciting actors for an outside drama? This is beginning to be precisely what WikiLeaks showed us happened in the campaign, where George Soros and his ilk financed guerrilla operations and dirty tricks operations to foment violence at the Trump rallies so that Trump could be blamed for the violence. That's precisely what is going on in Charlottesville. And the president raises a good point. It's interesting because if you start by tearing down statues of Robert E. Lee and Jefferson Davis, George Washington was in fact a slaveholder. Do you tear his statue down? To which one black journalist I was reading to the other day said, yes, not going to happen. So let us now turn to the Trump White House, where the cabal of the generals, what I call the 7 days in May crew, is very much in control, where General H.R. McMaster, who looks amazingly to me like Don Rickles, by the way, is in an alliance with White House Chief John Kelly. Reminds me very much of General Alexander Haig. And they are believed to be allied with General Mad Dog Mattis, the first non-civilian defense secretary in modern times. This triumvirate, which is most internationalist and globalist in its own coloration, was responsible for the ouster of Anthony Scaramucci, in that case with the active assistant of presidential strategist Steve Bannon. Now, unfortunately, Scaramucci's real sin was access to the president. It's incumbent now on Kelly, who's attempting to crack down, to control all information in and out to the president, or to the point where Ivanka and Jared now must communicate through General Kelly, and neither one of them are allowed to meet with the president alone, nor can they just walk in to the president's office during, as was the case, during the chaos in which Reince Priebus was running the show. Therefore, you have now a dynamic in which the generals will seek to oust Steve Bannon. Now, I have been one who has defended Bannon against charges of anti-Semitism or bigotry or white supremacy. These are falsehoods. But I believe he's a spent volcano. He has not stepped up, first in the personnel process, not understanding that personnel is policy. He helped no other Trump loyalists get inside the White House walls. Now he finds himself facing the globalists alone. He also, unfortunately, was the prime mover in the appointment of Rex Tillerson as our Secretary of State. Steve Bannon knew that Tillerson's chief patron was Condoleezza Rice, and that Rice had recommended Tillerson face-to-face with the president in a meeting in New York. Yet, he pushed the appointment of Tillerson. Rice and the Romneyites now dominate the Trump State Department. The pressure to remove the Soros people from embassies across Eastern Europe is ignored in the Tillerson State Department. This is another example of what Steve Bannon has given us. I am deeply disappointed that he didn't tell the president that Joe Arpaio was being unfairly prosecuted, and that prosecution should be halted. Steve Bannon, who came up with a higher tax proposal, which Larry Kudlow and the other growth experts said would be a disaster for the Trump economic revolution. So it is not that I do not have affection for Mr. Bannon and his roguish style. I named him as one of the worst dressed people in the world in my 2015 Mr. Stone's best and worst dressed list. Steve wore it like a badge, showing his friends. The man does, in fact, dress like a hobo. But I think the point here is that the generals will now take Stephen Bannon out, regardless of what Roger Stone thinks one way or another, for the same reason that Scaramucci had to be removed. It's because of Steve's independent access to the president. The generals, the 7 days in May crowd, those who are closely aligned with individuals like Robert Mueller and James Comey and the permanent Washington two-party duopoly establishment, still have in essence, a slow-motion coup afoot. The idea here is to seize control of all information, render the president impotent, and set him up for a takedown by the Lord High Executioner of the establishment. That's what's really going on in Washington. I do want to take a moment to talk to you about the fact that we need your support to keep these kind of breaking news stories front and center here at InfoWars. Looking at the most recent specials is really extraordinary. You've got these BuzzFeed specials, which is built around the whole concept of 1776. You're looking at Brain Force, right now on sale for $17.76. This is the next generation of advanced neural activity supplement. This is getting hundreds of 5-star ratings. This is one of the better products that my friends tell me about. You can also have Survival Shield X2. This is based on 200 million-year-old salt solutions that are found 7,000 feet below the Earth's surface. This is an excellent product, and again, 1776. If you want to find out why you need vitamin B12 and what it can do for you, the InfoWars Life Secret 12 is now also 1776. This has thousands of favorable reviews, and I highly recommend it. Remember, folks, that we don't have a George Soros in the background writing big checks. We don't have huge grants from the Rockefeller Foundation and the Ford Foundation and the Mellon Foundation. We can only depend on you. And we need you to help us use the free enterprise system and our deep belief in commerce and trade to give us the support we need for the expansion that Alex Jones has planned. New shows, new commentators, and some of the best breaking news sources now in the nation's capital will be here at InfoWars, but that kind of build-out is not cheap. So please, go to the BuzzFeed special list at the InfoWars store and look at the 1776 specials. These are crucial to move this product to help us finance the expansion that Alex Jones knows will make InfoWars even better. I'm Roger Stone, and I'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm Roger Stone, sitting in for Alex Jones. And like you, I'm intently watching the drama that is going forward in Washington. I have recently been approached by the lawyers for the House Intelligence Committee, and we are tentatively focused on testimony on September 26th. The terms of that are not yet set, but I am anxious to help clear the air on the Russian collusion delusion. The truth is that there was collusion by a foreign nation in our most recent presidential election. That would be the nation of Ukraine. Ukraine was illegally helping Hillary Clinton. Ukrainian intelligence was forging documents to smear Paul Manafort, even though prosecutors in Ukraine admit today that he has done nothing wrong or illegal in the country. But now we learn that these very same Ukrainians have sold missile technology to the North Koreans to make their weapons more accurate and more stable. So in other words, Hillary Clinton colluded with the Ukrainians to steal this election. Later in the week, I'll be talking to, sorry, we're active here at the Bureau. I apologize. I have Lee Stranahan will join me to lay out in chapter and verse what exactly is going on in terms of the lack of public focus and investigation into the illegal activities between the Ukrainians and the Clinton campaign. Unlike the Russian claims, here there is enormous proof of said collusion. On the other hand, collusion with foreign elections of foreign countries abroad is not unheard of. We interfered in the Russian election, spending money and agitprop in order to elect Boris Yeltsin. Yet, to this day, not a scintilla, not a shred of evidence of improper conduct by anyone in the Trump campaign involving the Russians has been proven. The meetings between Donald Trump Jr. and a growing cast of Russians seems to be a Keystone Cops drama, but there's no violation of the law there. Nothing of value exchanges hands. There are many questions about how the woman Russian lawyer even got into the country without a visa. Why would the FBI help her do so? And then there is the question of why she is pictured at a Hillary Clinton rally, and then later again at in the office of Senator John McCain. No, Russia is fallen flat as a pancake for the left. So now they are shifting to their second favorite attack vehicle, race. Now, that is unfortunate, but I think you're going to find that the country agrees with the president when it comes to condemning hateful demonstrators, protesters, or thugs of the left, and they must be denounced just as much as those rabble-rousers on the right. Please do me a favor, folks, and help us here stay ahead of the news curve. Help us with our expansion. Hit the Infowars.com store. You've got this 1776 sale on, which is extraordinary. We're talking about Brain Force Plus. We're talking about Survival Shield X2. You're talking about Bio True Selenium. You've got the new Super Blue mouthwash. My grandson loves this. 1776 Silver Bullet. Torque up that immune system. $9.95, 66% off. You won't see these prices again for a while, and some of these products really are first rate. I've used many of them. They're popular in the Stone household. I used to go to the local GNC until I figured out that the quality of the InfoWars store is really first rate. Alex Jones and his people don't put anything up for sale on the site which isn't carefully tested to be the best of its genre. So sure, you can find, male products, let us say, in the drugstore, but you will not have this quality. Help us save America. Help yourself. Go to the Infowars.com store. I'm Roger Stone, and we'll be back shortly. Welcome back. I'm Roger Stone. I had the honor of going to Atlanta last weekend for a MAGA Dixie rally sponsored by Citizens for Trump. And I can say without any question that, and polls reflect this, support for the president is at an all-time high, and the intensity of his support among his supporters not only has not lost any of its luster, as it has with Hillary Clinton. If anything, the president is stronger among Republican primary voters than at any time I have seen an incumbent Republican presidency. That said, I was really heartened by the extraordinary turnout for the MAGA rally and the fighting spirit of those who attended. And you can see my pretty fiery speech, an attack on the deep state, by going to stonecoldtruth.com. I think it's worth your while. While I was in Atlanta, I had the opportunity to endorse the candidacy of Senator Michael Williams, who I believe will be joining us shortly. Now, I am going to work for Republican candidates in the 2018 cycle. I'm going to go out and support those who support the president, not the country club establishment Republican types who have cut and run on the question of health care, who don't want a corporate income tax cut as large as the president. I think the only way the president can survive his battle with the Congress is to run against both parties, to make it clear to the people that he has put forward an aggressive and dynamic program for economic growth, but the two-party duopoly, the Republicans and Democrats working together, have thwarted that plan. You see, maybe it's Trump a triangulation, but he will do himself no good by endorsing the establishment re-election candidacy of candidates like Senator Luther Strange. Nor should he listen to the party leaders who will tell him that primaries are divisive. Donald Trump is not a career politician, and he doesn't have career politician views or rules. I would argue that he should target a selected group of incumbents who have been recalcitrant about supporting his program and take the fight right to the Republican establishment. If he takes a few scalps, if he wins a few preliminary victories, believe me, Senator Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan will wet their pants. And now I believe we have solved our technical problems, and we are pleased to have join us a gentleman who I think will be the next governor of Georgia, Senator Michael Williams. Welcome to InfoWars.
Well, thank you, Roger. It's a pleasure to be here with everybody.
I really want to tell people why I made the trek to Norcross, Georgia, to say a few words on your behalf. And no, I am not a paid consultant or strategist in your campaign. I'm a free agent, and I'm going to help those who helped the president. So not only are you, a comrade in arms from the Trump campaign, I know an early supporter long before many in the establishment realized his candidacy was real. But in many ways, you remind me of the president. You didn't come to the state Senate from politics. You came from business. You didn't come from a political background. You came from an entrepreneurial background. And I think many people don't know this. It was only when Obamacare threatened to destroy your business that you made the decision to make the sacrifice with small children, but get into politics and see if you can make a difference. And that's really why I went to Georgia and why I'm proud to endorse your candidacy.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct, Roger. I was the first elected official here in Georgia to come out and support the president in September of 2015. In fact, when he had his first rally in Norcross in October of that month, I was one of the only candidate, or the only elected official that spoke at his rally. Also, you touched on it. I'm not a career politician. I'm a business guy. I'm a CPA by trade. Used to own 18 barbershops called Sport Clips Haircuts. Had 160 employees. Was taking care of my employees. They were loving their jobs. And Obamacare came in. And I was just sick and tired of continually fighting the government. I spent so much of my time dealing with the red tape and fighting government that I ended up selling it and decided, you know what? I'm fed up with career politicians that say one thing, get elected, and instead of doing what they promised the voters, they do what the people that finance their campaigns want them to do. They follow the lobbyists, the special interests, big corporate, and doing their bidding. So I figured, I just can't complain about it anymore. I've got to go out there and do it myself. So I put about $300,000 into my first campaign. Went out there and to be honest with you, we kicked the ass of the incumbent. He got his butt beat by 64%, 64 to 34%.
You have an amazing and dynamic career so far. Something that Anthony Scaramucci, the former White House aide, said last week on his ABC interview is very true. Those in the political class don't want those from the entrepreneurial business class in the game, people who have had to make a profit, meet a payroll, pay their taxes. It's a zero-sum game for these career politicians. It's all about getting reelected, being non-controversial, keeping your head down, and, as you know, with gerrymandering, appealing to the most partisan nature of their constituencies. You have an experience as a manager, and the race here is about governor. Governors need to run things, and I get the sense that you would run a tight ship. Now, they say you're a dark horse. They say you're the long shot, but I can tell you, it is not the candidate with the most money who wins. It is not the candidate with the most establishment endorsements. How do you think your campaign is going?
I think our campaign is going fantastic, and you're absolutely right. They consider us a dark horse, that we're kind of the long shot. But they said that about Donald Trump, too. They said that he would never win. He could never beat Jeb Bush and some of the other establishment candidates. When he became the Republican nominee, they said he could never beat Hillary Clinton. Well, we saw what happened. Donald Trump won. The people in this country, in this state as well, are sick and tired of the career politicians that you said earlier. They rely on the money train that is taxes. They go into our pockets every single quarter, every single month, and take our money from us by force. I was sitting in a budget meeting, the very first budget meeting I was as a state senator, and they had this chart up on the wall that was a graph of what they call revenue. Again, what it is it's taxation. And they're all patting themselves on the back because they had collected more revenue. I was sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, these guys don't know what they're talking about. This is not revenue. This is taking our money by force. There is no product they're selling. They're taking it from us. And then what they do with it, it's astounding. Again, like I said, I'm a CPA. I actually enjoy reading audit reports and financial statements. I've been diving into the books here in the state of Georgia, and we waste billions of dollars every single year. It's mind-numbing, the amount of money that we waste. And again, the career politicians, they don't care. As long as they get the support of the lobbyists, the special interests, they'll dole out our money all day long. We see that with tax credits and all kind of other programs that we have here in the state of Georgia, again, that benefit a select few people, not the people of Georgia.
You know, it's funny you mention it because your chief opponent, Casey Cagle, reminds me very much of Jeb Bush. You know, lots of money, but no votes. Here's a guy who's been in public office for 24 years straight, been on the public payroll since he was 28 years old, never created a job, never made a payroll, but more importantly, not much of a legislative record either. A classic go-along to get-along politician who secretly opposes pay raises for cops and firemen, for law enforcement, then publicly tries to pretend he was for it. It's the typical, politician's two-step. I've seen this one before.
No, exactly, Roger. I mean, you just hit the nail on the head. He's been in office for a quarter of a century. Not only that, Republicans have controlled the state of Georgia for over a decade with the governor's office, the House, and the Senate. And we still have the highest state income tax in the Southeast. I think South Carolina has a little bit higher than us. Our budget has grown from $15 billion to $25 billion in the past 7 years. And again, to your point earlier, I had a bill this past legislative session where we were trying to give our law enforcement officers a pay raise. We have 3,200 law enforcement officers in the state of Georgia that are on food stamps. That is an embarrassment. He killed that in the Senate. Now, there's plenty of money to give to build stadiums and parking lots and all that kind of good stuff for the for big corporate out there. But where was the money for the law enforcement officers when they need it? Again, having anybody supporting us with their lives on the line every single day, and they have to be on food stamps. Again, it's an embarrassment, and we need to do something about it. We need to, again, support the people of Georgia, not the career politicians and the establishment.
Now, Senator, here's a political question for you. Donald Trump's victory in the state of Georgia was by about 4 points. Certainly significant and solid, but I expected perhaps that it might have been a little bigger. If the election were held again tomorrow in Georgia, what would be the result?
I believe that he would win by a drastic margin right now because the people here in Georgia, they love what our president is doing. They are seeing a man who is committed to bringing our country back, to making America great again, and he is fighting tooth and nail against the media, on both sides, both the right and the left. I mean, to have a Senate right now that will not pass the repeal of Obamacare after campaigned on doing that, again, it continues to add fuel to that fire that we are feeling, where we're just tired of these politicians that say one thing and do something else. So I don't know what the number would be, but I know he would win by a much larger margin, primarily because, again, I'm talking to people out there that say, they are in support of their president. And also, he won 155 of 159 counties here in Georgia primary. So he has a strong base here in Georgia.
Well, we're going to be following your race very, very closely. It was my colleague Owen Schroyer here at InfoWars who first picked up on the Omar Navarro for Congress campaign against Maxine Waters. We're also going to be following Carla Spalding, the Republican candidate against Deborah Wasserman Schultz in Fort Lauderdale. We're going to be watching your campaign for Georgia as well. I know this is an uphill, grassroots, hand-to-hand combat endeavor, but I have a feeling that you are on the right course, and we will welcome you back at InfoWars to give us kind of an update down the road.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And if I may, Roger, can I just direct everybody to our website? They can go to learn more about our campaign. It's williamsgeorgia.com. And like you said, we're relying on grassroots. I've already put a lot of money myself in the campaign, but anybody who wants to support the president here in Georgia, support his movement, I appreciate any donations y'all can throw our way. Again, it's williamsgeorgia.com, and thanks for having me on.
Great. There he is, folks. Fearless conservative Michael Williams, the new breed of Republican. We are back to tell you that this very day, the United States Cannabis Coalition, a bipartisan nonprofit, which is an ad hoc project of the U.S. Freedom Coalition, was launched. My co-partner in this endeavor is the trial lawyer from Orlando, John Morgan, who is widely and correctly credited with single-handedly passing the constitutional amendment in Florida that allows for the sale of medicinal marijuana. We simply call on the president, who courageously said that he would support the access of millions of Americans, including our veterans, to medicinal marijuana in the 29 states where it is legal. We simply call on the president to keep that pledge. We're deeply disturbed by grumblings that Attorney General Jeff Sessions and the White House Chief of Staff General Kelly are plotting a criminal crackdown in those states where there is a dichotomy between federal and state law. And of course, the feds argue that marijuana is illegal. The Holder memo, in essence a directive from the Attorney General under Barack Obama, that the feds would stand down where the states have legalized, is sound public policy and has worked well. Millions of Americans have been assisted, and thousands of jobs have been created, while millions more in revenue have been generated. More importantly, opioid deaths, opioid-related crimes, and all minor crimes are down. This is a bipartisan effort, folks, Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, progressives and libertarians, working together to persuade the president to keep his pledge regarding states' rights and the states' rights to self-determination on the question of marijuana. We also support a change from the Schedule I rating of marijuana so that doctors can prescribe it for their patients who would benefit. That will be in the news, and you can go to uscannabiscoalition.org for more information. This is a great time, folks, to tell you one more time that we here really are challenged by the tech left, who would frankly use manipulation of the algorithms and all these fake news computer games to limit our reach to you. That is why we are in a fight over free press and free expression, and why I need you to go to the InfoWars store now and take advantage of these 1776 specials. yes, you'll be helping us, but you will also be helping yourself. More importantly, you'll be helping the fight for freedom, the fight against the upcoming coup, against our president who is duly elected. No one else will keep you apprised of what's going on in the coup like we here at InfoWars. Working with my colleagues, we have the best sources into the inside track around the president. So help us with your patronage by going to the InfoWars store now. Again, the 1776 specials. You will not see prices like this again soon. I thank you, and we will be back momentarily. I'm Roger Stone, sitting in for Alex Jones. Thank you very much. I'm Roger Stone. A little ZZ Top there. That's a lot of music for just three guys from Texas. Speaking of Texas, I'm headed to Austin to guest host for Alex Jones on Thursday and Friday of this week. And we're going to be laying out in greater detail the extraordinary evidence that proves Ukrainian collusion with Hillary Clinton's campaign and, shockingly, the Ukrainian role in now supplying deadly missile technology to North Korea. We also will be talking about the Deborah Wasserman Schultz IT scandal, which grows worse by the day. You see, it is not just that Deborah Wasserman Schultz badgered the Capitol Hill police chief to get the laptops seized in the investigation into the shady Pakistani Awan brothers. It's also that Wasserman Schultz, after she was formally notified of the investigation, changed the status of one of the brothers in the system from consultant to employee to guarantee his continued access to the U.S. House of Representatives computer system. This is, of course, completely, in the view of many attorneys, makes her an accessory. Deborah Wasserman Schultz said last week that perhaps the Awan brothers who stole data and money are only being persecuted because of their Muslim faith. This is a race to watch because Deborah Wasserman Schultz